Welcome to Terrified Tales, where things are about to get unsettling. Before we dive deeper into the darkness, make sure to like and subscribe. Let us know where you're listening from and what time it is. Are you brave enough to be here at night? Now, relax and let the fear take hold. The story opens with the camera of the mind zooming in on a small, tight-knit group of 4 friends, each from different walks of life, but bound by the deep connection of shared history and mutual respect. The group is embarking on a journey to reconnect after years of scattered lives and the pressures of adulthood. Daniel, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob, all in their late 20s, gather for a weekend escape in the wilds of the north, a break from the hustle and bustle of their urban lives. The trip is a chance for them to rediscover themselves and each other. Daniel, the protagonist, is the most reflective of the group, always introspective and contemplative. He's recently been dealing with the overwhelming guilt of a family tragedy that remains unresolved. And this trip is his attempt to find a sense of peace. His cousin, Sarah, is the extroverted and adventurous spirit of the group, always seeking new experiences, often pushing Daniel to open up about his past. Emma and Jacob, the other 2 friends, are supportive but equally clueless about the emotional turmoil that Daniel is hiding. The group begins their journey on a crisp autumn morning, with the sun high and the forest alive with the sounds of nature. The air smells fresh, filled with pine and earth, promising an idyllic weekend of hiking, campfires, and shared stories under the stars. However, as they venture deeper into the woods, a subtle unease begins to settle over Daniel, a lingering feeling that something is off. His mind drifts back to his childhood, when he spent some time in a village nearby, Aldenbrook, a place that now feels more like a distant memory than a physical location. He can't quite shake the sensation that this trip is somehow leading him back to that village, a place he'd rather forget. The group's journey and the sense of disorientation. The friends have been hiking for hours. They follow a winding trail which, in hindsight, seems more treacherous than they initially realized. The path isn't marked as well as it should be, and the weather, once clear, begins to take a shift. Dark clouds gather overhead, and the wind picks up, turning the once pleasant hike into something more ominous. The trees seem to close in on them, making the surroundings feel claustrophobic. Emma jokes about getting lost in the woods, but there's an edge to her voice now, and Daniel notices the discomfort on Sarah's face. It's hard to ignore the increasing tension as they walk, but no one speaks about it. By late afternoon, they find themselves at a fork in the road. 2 paths diverge, one leading deeper into the woods, and the other veering toward a steep incline. The group debates their next move, but no one is really sure which way to go. In a moment of confusion, Daniel insists on taking the path on the left. He feels an inexplicable pull toward it, something subconscious guiding him. As they continue down this mysterious path, the forest becomes eerily silent. The air grows still, and even the birds stop singing. The atmosphere around them grows colder. Sarah mentions that it feels like they're walking through a ghost town, even though they're miles from civilization. No animals stir, no leaves rustle. It's as though the forest has frozen in time. The shadows grow longer, the colors of the forest more muted. The group presses on, but the silence becomes unnerving. The further they travel, the more disoriented they feel. Eventually, the landscape around them begins to change, the trees becoming thicker, the path more narrow. The woods feel dense, almost suffocating. Daniel's thoughts spiral, and he can't shake the nagging feeling that they've entered a place that's both real and not real, a space suspended in time. He can't remember exactly how they got here, but he's sure that the path should have been different. They should have been able to find their campsite by now. As twilight falls, the group stumbles upon the clearing, and to their surprise, they see a small village in the distance. The village of Oldenbrook, a place that Daniel has not thought about in years, stands eerily silent in the distance. The Aitaisa village is nestled within the trees, its houses crumbling, windows shattered, and the remnants of forgotten structures barely holding on to what was once a thriving community. The faint glow of candlelight flickers through the cracks of the buildings, but no one is visible. It's an unsettling sight. For Daniel, a wave of memories crashes over him. His grandmother's stories, the warning she once gave him to never return to Oldenbrook. "This is Oldenbrook," Daniel says quietly, more to himself than to the others. His voice is hollow, as if he stepped into a place that belongs to someone else, someone long gone. He doesn't even realize that he's speaking the name of the village until Sarah stops and looks at him confused. "You know this place?" she asks. Daniel doesn't answer. Instead, he stares at the village, a strange tension pulling at his chest. There's something about the village that feels both familiar and wrong. It's like staring into the past, but through a veil of mist. A cold wind sweeps through the clearing and Sarah pulls her jacket tighter around her shoulders. "I think we should camp here," she says, trying to lighten the mood. "It looks deserted, but we could set up camp and figure out where we are tomorrow." Jacob agrees, and the group makes their way into the village, though Daniel hesitates, feeling a knot form in his stomach. As they walk through the village's dilapidated streets, they pass old buildings that seem to have been untouched by time, even though they appear to be hundreds of years old. The houses are worn, their wooden exteriors decayed, and the air smells of mildew and earth. The village's absence of life is palpable. No birds chirp, no animals scurry across the street. It's as if the place has been forgotten by the world. But as they reach the center of the village, they see something that makes them pause, an old overgrown well, its stone edges cracked and crumbling. The well, like the village, seems to be suspended in time. Its dark opening seems to draw them in, and they stand around it for a long moment, uncertain of what to do next. Daniel feels a tug in his chest, a sense of familiarity that he cannot explain. He glances at the others, but their faces are blank with uncertainty. "I think we should keep moving," Daniel says, his voice barely above a whisper. The group doesn't press him. They follow his lead, setting up camp in the village square, not far from the well. As night falls, the wind picks up, rustling the trees, but there's a stillness to the place that none of them can shake. They gather around the campfire, trying to convince themselves that the village is simply an abandoned relic. But Daniel feels the weight of something heavy in the air. There's a feeling deep inside him that they've entered a place where the past has not been allowed to rest. As the fire crackles and the night deepens, Daniel tries to push aside his memories of Oldenbrook. He focuses on his friend's chatter, trying to shake off the sense of foreboding that clings to him like a second skin. But every crack of the firewood, every gust of wind, makes him feel as though something is watching them, waiting. The group sits in silence for a moment, the unease growing. They are unaware that the village is not merely a place of the past. It is a trap. The spirits that linger here, bound by a curse, are watching them, waiting for one of them to take the first step toward the inevitable. As they settle down for the night, none of them realize that they are not alone, and the village, despite its empty streets, is alive. The moon is high above, a dim, ghostly glow casting long, eerie shadows over the village of Oldenbrook. The group moves cautiously through the abandoned streets, the rustling of their footsteps the only sound accompanying them in the stillness of the night. The village, which had appeared so far from the safety of their camp, now stands stark against the backdrop of the darkening forest. Its dilapidated state, though undeniably unsettling, is also a call to curiosity for Sarah, Emma, and Jacob. They'd expected a long, quiet night under the stars, but now find themselves drawn into a place that feels more like a dream or a nightmare. Daniel, however, feels something else entirely, a deep, gnawing dread rooted in memories he can't quite access yet. The houses, once quaint and charming, now show the signs of neglect and decay. Their exteriors are worn, paint peeling, windows shattered and doors ajar, like the skeletons of a once thriving community left to succumb to time. The wind has grown colder, whispering through the broken windows and across the cracked cobblestone streets. The air smells damp, the musty scent of aged wood and mold curling around them, as though the very earth beneath their feet has been holding its breath for centuries. Sarah, eager to explore, speaks first, breaking the uncomfortable silence that's begun to settle between them. "It's like something out of a ghost story. Isn't it kind of cool?" she says, her voice light, but there's an edge of nervousness to it that Daniel catches. Emma and Jacob laugh, but their voices are tight, and Daniel notices their unease too. None of them are truly at ease in this place, and even Sarah, who has always prided herself on being adventurous, can't mask the flicker of hesitation in her eyes. Daniel's chest tightens. This is not the kind of place that invites comfort. It's the kind of place that whispers to you, pulls at you, demanding you listen. And something tells him he's already listening, whether he wants to or not. Daniel leads the way, though he is far from certain he wants to go deeper into the village, but his feet move automatically, as if drawn by an invisible force. He glances back at his friends, all of whom are nervously scanning the surroundings, eyes darting from shadow to shadow. "What's with this place?" Jacob asks, his voice filled with a blend of curiosity and apprehension. "Why is it all so still?" Daniel feels the hairs on the back of his neck rise. "It doesn't feel right," he admits, his voice barely above a whisper. His friends look at him quizzically, but Daniel's expression is far from reassuring. He doesn't know how to explain what he feels without sounding insane. The unease in the air is palpable, like the world itself is holding its breath. Sarah lets out a nervous laugh. "You're being melodramatic. It's just an old town, that's all. It's abandoned, sure, but..." Before she can finish, something shifts. In the air, a low hum, barely perceptible yet unmistakably present. Daniel freezes, his heart pounding in his chest. He knows this sound, but he can't place it. It's almost like a whisper carried by the wind, a murmur that reaches deep inside his thoughts. He looks around quickly, but nothing seems to have changed. The village is as still as it was before. Emma catches his look and raises an eyebrow. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I think we should turn back," Daniel says, his voice trembling slightly. He knows he's not imagining things. There's something wrong with this place, but the words don't sound convincing even to him. His friends exchange unsure glances, but follow him silently, sensing the deepening tension in his voice. Exploring the village, they continue through the village, their pace quickening as they approach the center of town. The houses here are older, the stonework weathered by time. The architecture is peculiar, with Gothic arches and towers that stretch upward, as though reaching for something far beyond the stars. The windows, most of them broken, stare back at them like empty eyes. The streetlights, if you could call them that, are barely functional, casting dim, flickering light that only seems to heighten the overall sense of foreboding. Despite the beauty in the details of the old buildings, a dark shadow seems to loom over everything. It's a place caught between reality and something darker, a space suspended in time. The further they move into the village, the more Daniel feels like the walls are closing in on him. He can't shake the feeling that they are being watched, followed by something unseen. Suddenly they reach the village square, a wide, open area surrounded by empty shops and crumbling buildings. At the center of the square stands an ancient well, its stonework jagged and eroded by centuries of neglect. The well is surrounded, by weeds, vines creeping up the sides, entwining themselves with the stone like veins in an old corpse. There's something ominous about it, like the well is holding something back, or perhaps something is waiting to escape. It looks like a trap, Jacob mutters, his unease now palpable in his voice. The group stares at the well in silence, all of them sensing the same thing. This place holds secrets, and they're not the kind of secrets meant for the living. Daniel's heart races. He feels a pull toward the well, a magnetic force that tugs at him from the pit of his stomach. It's as though the well itself is calling to him. He can feel his feet moving toward it before his mind can process the decision. "Hey, Daniel, wait!" Sarah calls out as she sees him moving toward the well. But Daniel doesn't stop. Something in him urges him forward. His memories from childhood, fragments he can barely grasp, swirl in his mind, the confrontation with the past. As Daniel approaches the well, the temperature around him drops sharply. A heavy fog begins to roll in, winding through the streets like a serpent. The air grows thick, suffocating. The whispers in the wind grow louder, more distinct. It's as if they're speaking directly to him. His hand reaches out toward the edge of the well, the cool stone sending a shiver up his spine. As his fingers brush the surface, a sudden vision overwhelms him. A flash of light, a memory long buried, a glimpse of a child standing by the well, holding his hand. The image flickers in his mind, distorted, and then fades as quickly as it came. The vision leaves him shaken, but he doesn't fully understand what it means. He can't, but something deep inside him, something that's been buried for years, is starting to stir, to awaken. And this village, this cursed place, is the key. "Daniel!" Sarah shouts again, this time with urgency in her voice. "What the hell are you doing? Get away from it!" Her voice breaks through his trance-like state. He steps back from a chill crawling up his spine. The whispering fades, but the sense of being watched grows stronger. He turns, and his eyes meet the others, all of them looking at him with concern. But Daniel's expression is blank, his mind too clouded by the vision to fully comprehend the moment. "We need to leave," he says hoarsely, but his words feel hollow. It's as if he's saying them not because he believes it, but because it's the only thing he can say. Sarah's face hardens with determination. "Okay, now you're scaring me. What's going on with you? What did you see?" Daniel opens his mouth to explain, but no words come out. How could he explain the feeling of time warping, the overwhelming sense that he's not supposed to be here? He's not sure himself. "I don't know," he finally admits, "but I think we're not alone." A growing uncertainty as the group stands in the village square. The sky above them shifts ominously. Dark clouds gather more quickly than they should, and the first drops of rain begin to fall, heavy and unrelenting. It's as though the village itself is reacting to their presence, drawing them deeper into its twisted grasp. "We need to get back to camp," Jacob says, his voice firm now, "before this storm gets worse." But as they turn to leave, something stops them. An unnatural stillness, a thick weight that settles over the air. The rain doesn't seem to reach them directly, as if some invisible barrier is holding it back. The only sounds they hear are their own footsteps and the soft echo of distant voices, too faint to make out. The village, once abandoned, is starting to feel like it's alive. And Daniel knows deep down that they've made a terrible mistake coming here. But now, there's no turning back. The chapter ends with the group standing in the village square, each member feeling the oppressive weight of the village around them. They have entered a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead are thin, and Daniel is beginning to realize that his past is inexorably tied to this cursed land. As they prepare to leave, they are unaware that they are not merely visitors. They are trapped in the web of a centuries-old curse, and it is only a matter of time before the village reveals its true, horrifying nature. The oppressive silence of Aldenbrook lingers in the cold air as the group makes their way back to their campsite. The rain, once light, has now begun to fall more heavily. It is as though the village itself is reacting to their presence, becoming darker, more hostile with every step they take. Daniel can feel it in his chest, a tightening sensation, as though the air around him is becoming thicker, more suffocating. He's not sure what's happening, but he knows it has something to do with the village, something to do with why he is here, why he feels like he's been pulled into this place by forces beyond his control. "Let's keep moving," Sarah says, trying to remain upbeat, but her voice betrays the uncertainty she's feeling. "We can't stay out here all night. We need to get to shelter." Her words are logical, but Daniel knows deep down that this village isn't just some abandoned place in the woods. It's alive, in a way that's difficult to explain. The village is watching them, waiting for something. He feels a strange pull in the pit of his stomach, as if it's calling to him personally, trying to draw him deeper into its mystery. He wants to run, but something holds him in place. Emma, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since they entered the village, finally speaks up. "This place gives me the creeps. It's like the world just stopped here." Her voice trembles with the unspoken fear that has settled over them all. Jacob, still the skeptic, tries to downplay the fear. "It's just an old town. We're imagining things, that's all." But even Jacob's words don't feel as convincing as they used to. The village, its stillness, its air of abandonment, feels like it's wrapping around them, pulling them in. Daniel can't shake the sense that the village is alive, that it has a history much darker than any of them realize. As they make their way down the narrow, winding streets, the rain begins to fall harder, the drops creating an almost hypnotic rhythm against the pavement. It's as if the entire world is being drowned in this heavy, oppressive rain. But there's something else, a low hum, almost imperceptible at first, but growing stronger with each step they take. It's like a vibration in the air, a sensation that makes the hairs on the back of Daniel's neck stand on end. "Did anyone else hear that?" Daniel asks quietly, his voice thick with tension. The group falls silent, listening intently to the sound. It's soft at first, but it becomes louder, more distinct. The hum seems to be coming from all around them, vibrating through the very ground they stand on. It's unnerving, disorienting, and it fills the air with a sense of foreboding. Emma shudders. "I don't like this," she whispers. The hum grows louder, more intense, until it's no longer just a sound. They can feel it in their chests, a pulse that seems to come from deep within the earth itself. Daniel stops walking, his mind racing as he tries to make sense of what he's hearing, what he's feeling. It's as though the village is speaking to them, calling them in. But to what end? As he stands still, he sees something in the corner of his eye, a flicker of movement, a shadow darting across the alleyway ahead. His heart skips a beat as he turns, but there's nothing there. Only the rain soaking into the cobblestones and the distant haunting hum that continues to reverberate through the air. "I saw something," Daniel murmurs, his voice barely audible. He's not sure if he's imagining things or if the village itself is playing tricks on him. "What did you see?" Jacob asks, his voice sharp with concern. "A shadow. It moved, like it was watching us." Sarah frowns, her brow furrowed. "It was probably just a stray animal, or the wind messing with your mind." But Daniel isn't convinced. He knows what he saw, what he felt, and the more he tries to dismiss it, the more it becomes impossible to ignore. The village is alive, with something darker than any of them could have anticipated. The whispers, begin as they approach the edge of the village square. They see the remnants of an old church, its towering steeple barely visible through the fog and rain. The large wooden doors are wide open, the church's interior dark and uninviting. Despite the creeping sense of dread, Daniel feels a strange pull toward the church. It's as though it's calling to him, the hum now louder than ever. "We need to stay together," Daniel says, his voice shaky but firm. The others look at him, but he knows they can feel it too, the growing sense that they are being drawn into something far beyond their understanding. It's no longer just an abandoned village. It's something more, a place with a history that is reaching out, trying to drag them in. The group enters the church cautiously, their footsteps echoing against the cold stone floor. The air inside is thick with dust, and the remnants of old pews sit in scattered disarray, as though the church had been hastily abandoned. The stained glass windows, though cracked and broken in places, still cast dim light through the rain. The faint hum from outside seems to have followed them into the church, now amplified in the stillness. They walk deeper into the church, their voices hushed, as if not wanting to disturb the silence that hangs over them. Then they hear it. Soft at first, just a whisper, a voice that seems to come from the very walls themselves. It's faint, unintelligible, like someone is speaking in a language they don't understand. "Did you hear that?" Emma asks, her voice trembling. "Yeah," Sarah says, her voice barely a whisper. "It's coming from over there." She points toward a shadowed alcove at the far end of the church. The whispering continues, growing louder, clearer, as if the very stones of the church are alive with some long-forgotten knowledge. The voices, though still indistinct, seem to beckon them, urging them to come closer. The group hesitates, the unease mounting with each passing second. Daniel feels a strange compulsion to move toward the alcove, an irresistible pull that seems to guide his every step. He doesn't understand why, but he can't stop himself. His feet move forward, each step a slow and deliberate march toward the source of the whispers. As he reaches the alcove, the air grows colder, and the whispers intensify, now almost screaming in his ears. His heart races in his chest, but he doesn't stop. His hand reaches out toward the stone wall where the whispers seem to be emanating from. And then, just as his fingers brush against the cold stone, everything stops. The whispers fade away, leaving an oppressive silence in their wake. Daniel pulls his hand back, his breath shallow. His eyes dart around the alcove, but there's nothing there. Nothing but the darkness, the cold stone, and the eerie stillness of the church. What the hell was that? Jacob's voice cuts through the silence, a mix of fear and confusion. Daniel can't answer. His mind is reeling from the experience. He doesn't understand what just happened, but deep down he knows. He knows they are not alone in this village. The spirits that linger here, bound to the land by some ancient curse, are reaching out to them, trying to make contact. The first disappearance, just as they are about to leave the church, a loud crash from outside shakes the building. The sound of splintering wood echoes through the church, as if something, or someone, has fallen. The group rushes outside, only to find that one of the windows on the side of the church has shattered. The rain, now pouring relentlessly, has soaked the ground, making the street slippery. "Is anyone out there?" Sarah calls, her voice ringing through the storm. There's no answer. They cautiously approach the shattered window, peering through the jagged edges of glass. But the square of vision is dark and empty. A flash of lightning illuminates the square, outside, revealing nothing but shadows. They search the area, but there's no sign of anyone, not even the strange shadow that Daniel had seen earlier. "Did anyone see anyone near here?" Jacob asks, looking around the group. "No," Daniel says, his voice low. "But I know what I saw." Before anyone can respond, there's a sound, faint at first, but unmistakable. A soft, thudding sound like footsteps behind them. They turn around quickly, but there's no one there. The hairs on the back of Daniel's neck stand on end, and he realizes with a sudden sickening clarity that they are being hunted by something far older than they can comprehend. Suddenly, Emma screams. She's standing at the edge of the square, staring wide-eyed at something behind them. Her body trembles, her eyes filled with terror. I saw her, Emma whispers. A woman. She was standing right there, right in front of me. The others rush to her side, but when they turn, there's nothing. No sign of any figure, no trace of anyone having been there. Daniel feels a knot form in his stomach. He knows what's happening, this village, its cursed history, and the spirits that remain trapped here. They are beginning to take notice of them. The first sign of the curse has been revealed. The group, shaken by Emma's encounter and the escalating supernatural occurrences, decides to leave the church and return to their camp. But as they walk through the streets, the sense of being followed only grows stronger. The rain pours harder now, and the village, once quiet and seemingly abandoned, begins to reveal its true sinister nature. They are no longer just lost travelers. They are trespassers in a place where time itself has been distorted, and the spirits of the past are waiting for their reckoning. The weight of the past, the rain pounds relentlessly on the roof of their shelter, its drumming echoing through the small camp. The fire crackles, but the warmth it provides doesn't seem to reach the deep chill that settled into the air around them. Daniel sits at the edge of the camp, wrapped in his jacket, staring into the fire with distant, unfocused eyes. He feels as though his mind is slipping, like something is pulling him into the past, dragging him back to the memories he's been running from for years. The unease that settled into his bones when they first entered Aldenbrook has only grown, stronger with each passing hour. It's no longer just the village. It's the ghosts of his past, and they're beginning to bleed into the present. He doesn't share his thoughts with the others. How could he? They're all in the same boat, trapped in this cursed village, but none of them understand the pull that Daniel feels, the inexplicable, overwhelming connection he has to this place. None of them know that this village, this very ground they're standing on, has haunted him for as long as he can remember. His grandmother's warnings, her cryptic stories about Aldenbrook, have always lingered at the edge of his memory like a shadow. Now, standing in the village that she had warned him about, those stories are beginning to come to life. He closes his eyes, letting the crackling of the fire fill his ears, but the memories are still there. Fragments of a time long, buried. The flickering images in his mind are vague at first, but slowly they begin to piece together. He sees himself as a child, holding his grandmother's hand, walking through the village. He can feel the warmth of her touch, the safety she had always provided. But there's a darkness in the corners of the memories, something he had never been able to understand until now, a shadow that looms over the village, a whisper in the wind, the same feeling that has been with him since he arrived. Daniel? Sarah's voice cuts through his thoughts, and he looks up to see her standing in front of him, concern written on her face. You okay? Daniel nods, but the unease inside him refuses to settle. He can feel the weight of his grandmother's words, the cautionary tales she used to tell him, echoing in his mind. There's something here in Aldenbrook, something that calls to him, and he's beginning to fear that he may have come here not by accident, but by fate. The village is no mere relic. It's a place where time has stopped, a place where the past is trapped, waiting to be remembered. I'm fine, Daniel says, his voice rougher than he intended. He forces a smile, but Sarah doesn't look convinced. She sits beside him, her expression serious. You've been quiet all day, she says, her tone gentle. What's going on with you? Daniel opens his mouth to answer, but the words don't come. He doesn't know where to begin. How do you explain to someone that the village they've stumbled upon is more than just a forgotten place? It's a place that's tied to your deepest regrets. A place that seems to be waiting for you to remember something you'd rather forget. How do you explain that the village is alive, that it's calling to you, that the spirits trapped here have a history that is intertwined with your own? I don't know, he finally says, his voice barely above a whisper. I just feel like I've been here before. Sarah's brow furrows. What do you mean? Daniel doesn't have an answer, at least not one he can put into words. He doesn't even fully understand it himself, but something inside him knows that this village holds the key to unlocking the truth about his past. It's not just about the curse, it's about him, his family, and something he's been running from for years. A hidden truth revealed. The conversation is interrupted by Emma's sudden shout from across the camp. She's standing by the edge of their makeshift shelter, staring at something in the distance. "What is it?" Jacob calls, stepping toward her. Emma doesn't answer immediately. Her gaze is fixed on something in the distance, her face pale and tight with fear. She turns slowly to face the group, her mouth opening and closing as though she's struggling to find the words. "I saw something," she says, her voice trembling. I saw a figure." Daniel stands up, his heart pounding in his chest. The hair on the back of his neck stands on end as he turns toward the direction Emma is pointing. The night is thick with fog, the outlines of the village barely visible beyond the trees. But through the mist, Daniel can see something, or someone, moving. A shadow, tall and indistinct, standing at the far end of the village square, just beyond the church. "Was it a person?" Jacob asks, though there's a tremor in his voice that suggests he already knows the answer. "I don't know," Emma replies. "It was like a shadow, but it wasn't right. It moved wrong. I don't know how else to describe it." Daniel feels his stomach tighten. He knows what this is. The village isn't just haunted by the spirits of the past. It's haunted by something more powerful, something that exists outside of time. The figure Emma saw is a manifestation of the village's curse, a lingering presence that feeds on the fear and unease of the living. "I think we should go check it out," Sarah says, her voice a mix of curiosity and fear. But Daniel shakes his head quickly. "No," he says, his voice firm. "We need to stay here. We don't know what we're dealing with." His words fall into the tense air around them, but they don't seem to have the effect he was hoping. For Emma, Sarah, and Jacob exchange uneasy glances before Sarah speaks again. "But what if we're missing something? What if we can figure out what's going on? I mean, we came here to explore, right?" Daniel looks at Sarah, his eyes narrowing. He knows what she's suggesting, and he knows she's right. They are here to understand, to uncover the truth about this village and its curse. But Daniel's gut tells him they're not ready to face what's waiting for them. He's not ready to face it. "We're not ready," he mutters under his breath, though he's not sure if he's speaking to them or to himself. The journey into the village, despite Daniel's objections, the group decides to investigate further. They make their way toward the village square, the fog thickening with each step. The mist seems to cling to them, wrapping around them like a heavy, suffocating blanket. The rain has lessened, but the oppressive air has only grown heavier, like something is pressing down on them from above. As they approach the square, Daniel feels the weight of his grandmother's warnings pressing down on him. She had always told him that Aldenbrook was a place where time was trapped, where the past and present could no longer be separated. He had never understood her words before, but now, standing on the threshold of the village, he feels them echoing through his mind like a prophecy. He wants to turn back, but he knows they can't. They've come this far, and there's no turning back now. The village is waiting for them, and Daniel can feel its pull, drawing him deeper into its heart. The square is eerily quiet, the mist swirling around their feet as they move further into the village. The church stands at the center, its dark silhouette looming in the distance. Daniel knows that they must go there, must face whatever it is that's hiding inside the walls. The village has already begun to reveal itself to them, but it's only a fraction of the truth. The real horror lies within the church, in the heart of the village, where the curse began. As they approach the church, Daniel feels something shift in the air. It's subtle at first, but it's enough to make him stop in his tracks. The temperature has dropped again, the chill sinking into his bones. The whispers from earlier have returned, faint but insistent, like a chorus of voices rising from the ground itself. "It's here," Daniel whispers, his voice barely audible. The others stop beside him, their faces pale and tense. Sarah steps forward, but before she can reach the church doors, a loud, piercing scream shatters the silence, echoing through the village. The chapter ends with a chilling cliffhanger as the scream reverberates through the village, leaving the group on edge. The discovery of the village's deeper mystery is now intertwined with Daniel's past, and the realization that the village's curse is not only supernatural but deeply personal is beginning to weigh on him. The echoes of his grandmother's warnings and the growing sense of something much darker waiting for him in the church propel the group into a confrontation with the unknown. The scream still echoes through the village as the group stands frozen, the weight of its raw terror settling heavily in the air around them. The suddenness of the sound, high-pitched and filled with anguish, rattles their nerves, leaving a tangible tension that seems to distort the very space they occupy. For a moment, everything feels suspended in time, as if the village itself is holding its breath. Daniel's heart races, but his instincts push him forward. The sense of urgency compels him to move toward the source of the scream, even though every part of him is screaming to run. Something in the air has changed. An oppressive heaviness presses down on them, and the feeling that they are being watched intensifies. This is no longer just a forgotten village caught in the past. It is a place where something dark and ancient lingers, where the fabric between the living and the dead is thin. "Did anyone else hear that?" Jacob asks, his voice cracking as he looks around, scanning the empty streets with wide, fearful eyes. "I heard it," Daniel says quietly, his voice low and strained. He can feel the cold sweat trickling down his spine. "It came from the church." Sarah looks at him, eyes wide with fear. "Are you sure? What was that? It sounded like a woman." Emma shivers, her face pale. "It was so real. It wasn't a figment of our imagination." Daniel doesn't need any more confirmation. He knows. The village has been trying to communicate with them. The spirits of Aldenbrook are restless, and the scream is their desperate call. A warning or a summons, he can't tell. But it's real, and it's coming from the church. The tension mounts. The group stands motionless for several long seconds. The village square, once quiet and still, now feels like a labyrinth of shadowed corners and dark spaces where something is lurking just out of sight. Daniel's gaze shifts to the towering, decrepit church at the center of the square. Its broken windows seem to stare back at him like hollow eyes, and the door, once ajar, now appears slightly more open, as if inviting them in. "I think we should go inside," Sarah says, her voice trembling. There's a flicker of fear in her eyes, but beneath it there's curiosity. Curiosity about the village's mysteries, and perhaps about her own desire to uncover the truth. It's the same curiosity that has led them here, deeper into the heart of the curse. Daniel, however, is uncertain. His chest tightens, his breath shallow, as the memories of his childhood begin to resurface. He had heard stories about this church, about the dark history that had unfolded here long ago. His grandmother had warned him time and again not to. set foot in Aldenbrook, especially not in the church. Now, standing before it, he can feel the weight of her words pressing down on him like a suffocating weight. "Are you sure about this?" Jacob asks, looking to Daniel for direction. The skepticism in Jacob's voice is clear, but there's no denying the fear that grips him too. "I don't know," Daniel replies, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I think we have to." Despite the hesitation in his voice, Daniel steps forward, his legs moving almost against his will. The others follow, though each step seems to drag, as if the very earth beneath their feet is resisting their movement. As they cross the threshold into the churchyard, the temperature drops again, and a chilling wind sweeps through the square. The fog grows thicker, swirling around their legs like something alive, as if the village itself is trying to envelop them in its grip. The church's dark presence. The church looms before them, its once sturdy stone walls now cracked and weathered. By time, the door creaks ominously as they push it open, revealing a dark interior filled with shadows. The faint smell of mildew and decay hangs in the air, but beneath it, there's something darker, something more sinister. Daniel steps inside first, his senses immediately overwhelmed by the heavy, suffocating air. The oppressive silence of the church is almost deafening, broken only by the faint sound of their breathing and the distant creaking of old wood. The floor beneath them is uneven, and their footsteps echo unnervingly, amplifying the isolation of the space. The stained glass windows, though cracked, still cast a dim, ghostly light across the pews, their once vibrant colors now muted by years of neglect. The group moves cautiously, their eyes scanning the dark corners of the church. The whispers from earlier, the ones Daniel had heard but couldn't understand, are now louder, more distinct. It's as if the very walls are alive with the voices of the dead, murmuring in a language lost to time. "I don't like this," Emma says, her voice tight with fear. She's gripping Jacob's arm, her body tense and her eyes darting nervously. "It feels wrong in here." Daniel nods, but his gaze is fixed on something at the far end of the church. The altar is there, draped in old, tattered cloth, and beside it stands an ancient, decaying crucifix. The wooden beams above creak ominously, as if groaning under the weight of something terrible. As he walks closer to the altar, he feels a shiver run down his spine, a feeling of impending doom that grips him with unrelenting force. "Look," Daniel says, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes fall upon a book resting atop the altar, its pages yellowed with age. The cover is worn and cracked, but there's something familiar about it, a strange sense of recognition that rises in his chest. "What is it?" Sarah asks, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Daniel admits, his hand reaching toward the book almost instinctively. But as his fingers brush against the cover, a sudden sharp pain shoots through his hand. He recoils, gasping in shock. "Are you okay?" Sarah asks, rushing to his side. Daniel nods, though the pain lingers in his hand, a dull, throbbing ache that refuses to fade. He looks down at the book, but now something has changed. The whispers, which had been distant before, now seem to surround him, filling his mind with fragmented images and voices from his past. It's as though the book itself is calling to him, urging him to open it, to see what's written inside. The ghostly presence reveals. Itself, suddenly, the temperature drops further, and a cold wind blows through the church, extinguishing the few remaining candles in the room. The shadows shift, twisting and warping in unnatural ways. Daniel's heart races as a figure begins to materialize before them, slowly, as if it's been summoned from the depths of the church itself. At first, it's barely visible, a faint outline, like smoke, drifting in and out of focus. But as it solidifies, the figure becomes unmistakable. A woman, her features pale and gaunt, her eyes hollow and dark, stares at them with an intensity that freezes them in place. Her long, dark hair hangs around her face like a veil, and her clothes are tattered, as if she's been trapped in this form for centuries. Emma screams, stumbling backward in terror. "What? What is that?" she gasps, her voice trembling. In disbelief, Daniel, rooted to the spot, feels a mixture of fear and recognition. The figure, the woman, seems familiar to him, though he can't place her face. Her expression is one of profound sorrow and pain, as though she's been waiting for something or someone for a long, long time. The woman's voice is soft, almost a whisper, but it cuts through the air like a blade. "You shouldn't have come," she says, her voice echoing through the church. "This place is not for the living." The group freezes, their fear palpable. The woman's gaze shifts to Daniel, her empty eyes locking onto his. "You have come to awaken what should remain forgotten," she continues, her voice growing colder. "The curse of Aldenbrook is tied to you." Daniel's heart skips a beat. The words hit him like a physical blow, and suddenly everything clicks. The village, the church, the whispers, his grandmother's warnings, the strange connection he feels to this place. It all leads back to him. The curse is not just tied to the village, it's tied to him. The revelation of the past, the woman's form begins to shimmer, her ghostly figure fading and reappearing with each flicker of the candlelight. The air grows heavier, thick with the weight of centuries of grief and suffering. "Who are you?" Daniel asks, his voice hoarse. "Why are you here?" "I am one of the forgotten," the woman responds, her voice filled with sorrow. "We were once the people of this village, alive, full of hope and love. But we were betrayed, bound to this land by a curse that can never be undone. And you, Daniel, you are the key." Daniel takes a step forward, his mind racing with confusion and dread. "What do you mean? What am I supposed to do?" The woman's gaze softens, her ghostly features trembling with emotion. "You must face the truth of your past," she says. "Only then will the village be free." The woman's form fades as quickly as it appeared, leaving the group in stunned silence. The church, once again still and silent, feels colder than before. Daniel stands alone in the center of the room, the weight of the revelation settling heavily on his shoulders. The village Aldenbrook is tied to him, and it is through confronting the buried truth of his past that he will be able to break the curse. But as the group gathers around him, Daniel knows that the journey is only beginning. The supernatural forces that haunt the village are growing stronger, and the ghosts that linger here will not let them go easily. Daniel nods, but his gaze is fixed on something at the far end of the church. The altar is there, draped in old, tattered cloth, and beside it stands an ancient, decaying crucifix. The wooden beams above creak ominously, as if groaning under the weight of something terrible. As he walks closer to the altar, he feels a shiver run down his spine, a feeling of impending doom that grips him with unrelenting force. "Look," Daniel says, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes fall upon a book resting atop the altar, its pages yellowed with age. The cover is worn and cracked, but there's something familiar about it, a strange sense of recognition that rises in his chest. "What is it?" Sarah asks, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Daniel admits, his hand reaching toward the book almost instinctively. But as his fingers brush against the cover, a sudden sharp pain shoots through his hand. He recoils, gasping in shock. "Are you okay?" Sarah asks, rushing to his side. Daniel nods, though the pain lingers in his hand, a dull, throbbing ache that refuses to fade. He looks down at the book, but now something has changed. The whispers, which had been distant before, now seem to surround him, filling his mind with fragmented images and voices from his past. It's as though the book itself is calling to him, urging him to open it, to see what's written inside. The ghostly presence reveals. Itself, suddenly, the temperature drops further, and a cold wind blows through the church, extinguishing the few remaining candles in the room. The shadows shift, twisting and warping in unnatural ways. Daniel's heart races as a figure begins to materialize before them, slowly, as if it's been summoned from the depths of the church itself. At first, it's barely visible, a faint outline, like smoke, drifting in and out of focus. But as it solidifies, the figure becomes unmistakable. A woman, her features pale and gaunt, her eyes hollow and dark, stares at them with an intensity that freezes them in place. Her long, dark hair hangs around her face like a veil, and her clothes are tattered, as if she's been trapped in this form for centuries. Emma screams, stumbling backward in terror. "What? What is that?" she gasps, her voice trembling. In disbelief, Daniel, rooted to the spot, feels a mixture of fear and recognition. The figure, the woman, seems familiar to him, though he can't place her face. Her expression is one of profound sorrow and pain, as though she's been waiting for something or someone for a long, long time. The woman's voice is soft, almost a whisper, but it cuts through the air like a blade. "You shouldn't have come," she says, her voice echoing through the church. "This place is not for the living." The group freezes, their fear palpable. The woman's gaze shifts to Daniel, her empty eyes locking onto his. "You have come to awaken what should remain forgotten," she continues, her voice growing colder. "The curse of Aldenbrook is tied to you." Daniel's heart skips a beat. The words hit him like a physical blow, and suddenly everything clicks. The village, the church, the whispers, his grandmother's warnings, the strange connection he feels to this place. It all leads back to him. The curse is not just tied to the village, it's tied to him. The revelation of the past, the woman's form begins to shimmer, her ghostly figure fading and reappearing with each flicker of the candlelight. The air grows heavier, thick with the weight of centuries of grief and suffering. "Who are you?" Daniel asks, his voice hoarse. "Why are you here?" "I am one of the forgotten," the woman responds, her voice filled with sorrow. "We were once the people of this village, alive, full of hope and love. But we were betrayed, bound to this land by a curse that can never be undone. And you, Daniel, you are the key." Daniel takes a step forward, his mind racing with confusion and dread. "What do you mean? What am I supposed to do?" The woman's gaze softens, her ghostly features trembling with emotion. "You must face the truth of your past," she says. "Only then will the village be free." The woman's form fades as quickly as it appeared, leaving the group in stunned silence. The church, once again still and silent, feels colder than before. Daniel stands alone in the center of the room, the weight of the revelation settling heavily on his shoulders. The village Aldenbrook is tied to him, and it is through confronting the buried truth of his past that he will be able to break the curse. But as the group gathers around him, Daniel knows that the journey is only beginning. The supernatural forces that haunt the village are growing stronger, and the ghosts that linger here will not let them go easily. They move toward the center of the square, where the well stands. The stone structure, weathered and crumbling, seems to call to him. Daniel can feel it, the pull of the past, the sense that the well holds the answers he's been searching for. As they approach, he can almost hear the whispers again, faint, distant murmurs that seem to rise from the earth itself. The air grows colder, the shadows darker. "This is it," Daniel says, his voice hoarse. "This is where it all started." Others stand around him, their faces filled with confusion and fear. They don't know what Daniel knows, what he feels. But they trust him, even as the village seems to close in around them. "Let's get this over with," Jacob mutters, stepping closer to the well. Daniel looks down into the dark abyss of the well, its depth hidden by shadows. He can't see the bottom, and he knows deep down that whatever he's looking for isn't on the surface. It's buried beneath, hidden from view. Suddenly, a loud creak breaks the stillness. The well's lid begins to shift as if moved by an invisible force. The group jumps back in alarm, but Daniel doesn't move. His gaze is fixed on the well, his heart pounding in his chest. He knows this moment is crucial, the moment that will unlock the answers they've been searching for. Before he can react, the lid of the well slides open with a groan, revealing the darkness beneath. A chill fills the air, and the whispers grow louder, more insistent. Daniel feels a hand on his shoulder, but he doesn't turn around. He knows who it is. It's Sarah, standing beside him, her presence offering him a small measure of comfort in the face of the unknown. "Do you hear it?" she whispers. Daniel nods, his eyes never leaving the well. "I hear it, the past. It's calling." The first vision, as they stand in front of the well, the temperature drops dramatically. The mist surrounding them thickens, and the air seems to become charged with an electric energy. Daniel's pulse quickens, his senses heightened as the world around him begins to shift. He can feel the presence of something ancient, something that has been waiting for him. Suddenly the ground trembles beneath their feet. The whispers grow louder, more urgent. Daniel's breath catches in his throat as a vision flashes before his eyes. In an instant, he's no longer standing in the village square. Instead, he's standing in a dark, fog-filled forest, surrounded by trees that seem to stretch on forever. The sky above is a sickly shade of grey, and a faint, unnatural light illuminates the path ahead. At the end of the path stands a figure, a man, tall and gaunt, dressed in tattered clothing. His face is hidden in shadow, but Daniel can feel the weight of his gaze. The figure reaches out to him, his hand trembling as it extends toward Daniel. "Help me," the man says, his voice distorted and hollow. "You must help me, before it's too late." Daniel tries to move, but his feet are rooted to the ground. The vision shifts, and he's back in the village square, standing by the well once more. The temperature returns to normal, but the air is still thick with the remnants of the vision. His heart is pounding in his chest, and his hands tremble as he tries to make sense of what he's just seen. "Did you see that?" Daniel asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah steps forward, her face filled with concern. "What did you see?" Daniel looks at her, his eyes wide with realization. It's all connected. The man, he's part of the village's history, and so am I. The revelation, the vision, brief but powerful, has shaken Daniel to his core. The figure in the forest, the desperate plea for help, it's all connected to his past. He has been running from something that happened long ago, something he's buried deep within himself. But the village, the spirits, and the curse, they won't let him forget. "I think I know what happened," Daniel says, his voice trembling with the weight of the truth. "The curse, it's tied to me, to my family. I was part of what happened, here, and now it's all coming back." The others look at him, their faces a mixture of confusion and fear. Daniel doesn't fully understand what happened yet, but he knows one thing for sure. The village is waiting for him to uncover the truth. The spirits trapped here, the curse, the horrors that linger, they all lead back to him. As the group stands in the eerie quiet of the village square, Daniel feels the weight of his past bearing down on him. The truth is out there, buried beneath the layers of the village's curse, and he's the only one who can uncover it. But the deeper they go, the more dangerous it becomes. The group stands at the threshold of something much darker than they anticipated, and the village, like a living entity, waits for them to face the truth. The supernatural forces that have haunted Oldenbrook for centuries are growing stronger, and Daniel's connection to them is undeniable. The path ahead is fraught with peril, and only by confronting his past can Daniel hope to break the curse and free the spirits trapped in the village. The night hangs heavily over Oldenbrook, the air thick with a palpable sense of dread. The village seems to breathe in the silence, the fog swirling around them like the tendrils of some ancient creature, watching, waiting. As the group huddles, near the well, Daniel feels the weight of the discovery settling heavily upon him. The vision he had experienced moments before, the shadowed figure beckoning him from the depths of the village's cursed past, lingers like a nightmare that refuses to let him wake. The man in the forest, the desperate cry for help, haunts him, and he realizes now, more than ever, that this village and the spirits it holds are irrevocably tied to his own family's history. The woman's ghost, the one who spoke to them in the church, had warned him, "You are the key." But Daniel still doesn't know what the key unlocks. He feels a stirring inside, an intuitive sense that the answers lie somewhere deeper within the village, somewhere hidden just beyond his reach. There's more to Oldenbrook than he ever could have imagined. The curse isn't merely a chain binding the spirits to the land, it's something older, something personal. Something that connects his past to the tormented souls of the village. "Daniel, what's going on?" Sarah's voice cuts through his thoughts. She's standing beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. You look like you've seen a ghost." Daniel shakes his head, blinking as if trying to dispel the vision still haunting him. "I think I have," he murmurs. "And I think this village, it's been waiting for me." The others stand around him, their faces a mix of fear and confusion. They don't understand yet. They don't know the weight Daniel carries, the guilt that gnaws at him, the lingering memory of a tragedy he can barely remember. His connection to this village isn't just one of coincidence. It's something far deeper, and his grandmother's warnings all seem to make sense now. "I don't know if I'm ready to hear what you're about to tell us," Jacob says, his voice tight with concern. "But we need to figure this out, Daniel. We can't keep running from whatever this is." Daniel looks at his friends, their faces a mixture of disbelief and determination. They've come so far, and now there's no turning back. The village's curse is tied to him, to his family, and whatever it takes, he knows he must unravel the mystery. He owes it to the spirits of Oldenbrook and to himself. "There's something buried here," Daniel says slowly, his voice filled with the weight of his own realization. "The curse, it's tied to something I did, or something my family did." He looks to Sarah, then to Emma and Jacob. They've been his friends for years, but now he realizes they've been brought into something far darker than they could have ever anticipated. "I don't know what happened here, but I think I was meant to come back. The village is connected to me, my family, and the only way to end this is to confront what happened." Sarah steps closer, her brow furrowed with concern. "What are you saying, Daniel?" "I think my family, they were involved in the curse," Daniel continues, his voice heavy with dread. "I don't know how, but I think we were the ones who set this in motion. And I think I've been running from the truth ever since." The group walks in silence through the mist, their footsteps muffled by the thick fog that seems to swallow every sound. Daniel leads the way, his mind consumed by the fragmentary visions that have come and gone like flashes of lightning in a dark sky. The village square stretches before them, the ancient well standing at its heart, now a silent sentinel to the buried past. "Where do we go now?" Jacob asks, his voice quiet but edged with concern. "You've got the answers, Daniel. We're with you." But we need a plan. We can't just keep wandering around. Daniel stops in his tracks, the weight of Jacob's words sinking in. The church, he says suddenly, his mind snapping into focus. There's something in the church, something I need to see. The others look at him with confusion, but they don't question him. They've seen enough to know that the church is where the heart of the village's curse lies. It's where the answers are hidden, where Daniel's past and the village's tragic history intersect. The church feels different now, more foreboding than it did before. The door, which had once creaked open with a simple push, now stands ajar, as if inviting them back inside, but also warning them to stay away. The air feels heavier, thicker with something unspoken, something ancient and powerful that has been waiting for them. Stay close, Daniel mutters to his friends as they step across the threshold into the darkness. The once comforting flicker of candlelight is gone, replaced by a pervasive shadow that clings to the walls, stretching long and twisted. The air is musty and stale, but there's something else, something colder, more sinister. Daniel's eyes dart around the room, scanning the familiar space for any sign of the hidden truth. He can feel it now, like a tug in his chest, a pull toward the altar at the far end of the church. He's drawn to it, the same way he was drawn to the well. He steps forward, his feet moving of their own accord, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. I think I need to open the book, Daniel says suddenly, his voice filled with purpose. He looks at his friends, his gaze steady. The one on the altar. It's the key. The others nod, but Sarah steps forward hesitantly. You're sure? Last time you touched something here, you got hurt. Daniel shakes his head. It's not about the book. It's about the truth. It's the only way we're going to get out of here. Daniel approaches the altar slowly, each step heavy with the weight of the moment. The book is still there, resting in the same place where he saw it last. Its cover, aged and cracked, seems to pulsate with an unnatural energy. The whispers return, faint, but growing louder, calling out to him, urging him to open it. As Daniel reaches for the book, the temperature drops again, and the room seems to shift, the shadows stretching and pulling around him. The whispers grow, louder, and he feels a sharp pain in his chest, like something is trying to claw its way out from within. With trembling hands, Daniel opens the book. The pages are old and fragile, the ink faded, but the words are still legible. As he reads the first few lines, a chill runs down his spine. The text is in a language he doesn't recognize, but somehow he understands it. The curse of Oldenbrook was not just an accident. It was a ritual gone wrong, one tied to an ancient power that was never meant to be unleashed. The ritual was intended to bind the spirits of the village to the land, to ensure their eternal presence. But the ritual required a blood sacrifice, and it was Daniel's family, his ancestors, who had performed it. They had sacrificed one of their own to complete the ritual, and in doing so, they bound the spirits to the land, trapping them in a cycle of torment. But the ritual was incomplete, and the curse was never fully sealed. The spirits remained restless, seeking the one who had been born of the bloodline that had triggered the curse, Daniel. As Daniel reads the book, he begins to feel the weight of the curse settle over him. The spirits are not just trapped in the village, they are tied to him. They are waiting for him to complete what his ancestors started, a final act that will either break the curse or ensure it endures for eternity. He reads on, his eyes scanning the cryptic text. The ritual can be undone, but it requires a sacrifice, his own life. To break the curse, Daniel must offer himself as the final piece to the ritual, allowing the spirits to move on and freeing the village from its torment. The realization hits Daniel like a punch to the gut. The choice is clear: sacrifice himself and end the cycle of suffering, or condemn the village and its spirits to eternal unrest. The weight of the decision is almost too much to bear. But in his heart, Daniel knows what must be done. He looks up from the book, his eyes meeting the gazes of his friends. Sarah, Emma, and Jacob are standing a few feet away, their faces filled with confusion and fear. They don't know the full truth yet. They don't know what Daniel is about to do. I don't know what to say, Daniel says, his voice thick with emotion. But I think this is the only way to stop it. The village. It's tied to me. It's been waiting for me to come back and finish what was started. What do you mean, finish what was started? Sarah asks, her voice trembling with concern. I'm the key, Daniel says quietly, his voice breaking. I was born to break the curse, and the price is my life. The chapter ends with a devastating realization hanging in the air. Daniel now understands the full weight of the curse, the truth of his family's involvement, the terrible cost of breaking the cycle, and the ultimate decision he must make. The village of Aldenbrook has been waiting for him, and now he must face the true price of freedom. The supernatural forces are growing stronger, and Daniel's journey into his past has only just begun. Daniel stands motionless in the center of the church, the book still open in his trembling hands. The pages glow with an otherworldly light, casting eerie shadows across the stone floor. The air around him is thick with tension, as if the village itself holds its breath, waiting for the inevitable. The weight of the knowledge he has uncovered presses down on him, suffocating him with the truth of his family's involvement in the curse that has haunted Aldenbrook for centuries. The truth is inescapable. Daniel's family is the source of the curse. His ancestors were the ones who performed the ritual to bind the spirits of the village to the land. And now Daniel, the last living descendant, is the key to breaking the curse, or completing it. The sacrifice that must be made is his own life, the final piece in a ritual that began long before he was born. It's a truth that shakes him to his core. And yet, deep down, Daniel knows that he is the only one who can undo the horror that has plagued Aldenbrook for generations. His mind spins with conflicting thoughts and emotions. The guilt of his family's past, the burden of their actions, weighs heavily on him. But there is also a sense of inevitability, a realization that this is his fate, his destiny. He is the key, the one who must face the final act, the one who must pay the price for the sins of his ancestors. As Daniel stands there, his gaze fixed on the words in the book, his friends gather around him. Sarah, Emma, and Jacob are silent, each of them processing the gravity of the situation in their own way. They have seen the ghosts, felt the supernatural forces closing in around them, but none of them truly understands what Daniel is about to face. None of them fully grasp the sacrifice that he must make to free the village from its curse. Daniel, Sarah's voice breaks the silence. What's going on? What does all this mean? Daniel slowly closes the book, his hands shaking. With the weight of the decision before him, he turns to face his friends, his heart heavy with sorrow. It means that I'm the one who has to end this. The village, the curse, it's all tied to me. I have to make the final sacrifice to break it. I have to give my life. The words hang in the air, a confession that is as much an acceptance as it is a declaration of the fate that awaits him. Sarah steps forward, her face filled with shock and fear. No, Daniel, you can't be serious. There has to be another way. But Daniel shakes his head. There isn't. This is the only way. The curse was started by my family, and I'm the only one who can end it. If I don't, the spirits will never rest. Aldenbrook will never be free. Jacob looks between Daniel and Sarah, his face pale, his eyes wide with disbelief. Are you telling us that you have to die? That's the only way to fix this? Daniel nods, his voice thick with emotion. Yes, the The ritual requires a sacrifice, the final piece that will complete it. The village, it's waiting for me to finish what my ancestors started. I can't escape it. Sarah steps closer to him, her voice trembling. But Daniel, we've been through this together. You don't have to do this alone. We can find another way. We'll figure it out. There's always a way. Daniel looks at her, his heart aching with the weight of her words. He wants to believe her, wants to believe that there is another way. But deep down, he knows that the village will never let them go until the curse is broken. And the only way to break it is for him to give himself up, to pay the ultimate price. I wish there was another way, Daniel whispers. But there isn't. This is the only way to save the village, to save all of us. As Daniel speaks, the air in the church grows colder, and the whispers return, louder this time, more insistent, as if the very walls of the church are pressing in on them. The spirits of Aldenbrook are restless, aware that the time for the final sacrifice is near. The ground trembles beneath their feet, and the church itself seems to come alive, its ancient stones creaking and groaning, as if the building is awakening from a long slumber. Emma steps back, her face pale with fear. What's happening? What's going on? Daniel's gaze shifts to the altar, where the book still lies open. He knows that the time has come. The village is calling him, pulling him toward the ritual that will free it from its curse and from its eternal torment. The spirits are waiting, their cries growing louder with each passing second. It's starting, Daniel says, his voice low and filled with a sense of inevitability. The ritual, it's beginning. Suddenly the church door slams shut, the sound echoing through the room with a deafening crash. The temperature drops even further, and a chill fills the air, seeping into their bones. The shadows in the corners of the church begin to twist and shift, taking on shapes that are almost human, their forms flickering in and out of existence. Daniel, Sarah says urgently, her voice filled with panic. We need to get out of here. This is too much, we can't stay. But Daniel doesn't move. He feels the pull of the ritual, the call of the spirits that has been waiting for him. It's as if the village itself is alive, demanding that he complete what was started so many years ago. He knows there is no turning back now. I can't leave, Daniel says softly. This is my fate. This is the only way to end it. As Daniel speaks, the church begins to shift. The shadows grow darker, and the temperature drops further until the air is so cold that their breath fogs in front of them. The whispers turn into wails, ghostly voices crying out in anguish. The spirits are restless, their presence overwhelming, as if they are closing in on them from all sides. The air seems to crackle with energy, and the church itself begins to tremble, the walls groaning under the weight of the curse. The floor beneath Daniel's feet feels unstable, as if the very ground is giving way to the power that has been building for centuries. The spirits of the village are rising, their ethereal forms materializing before them. One by one, the ghostly figures appear, faint at first but growing stronger, more solid. They are the souls of the village, bound to the land by the curse, waiting for the ritual to be completed. Their faces are twisted with pain and longing, their eyes hollow with the weight of their eternal torment. Help us, a voice whispers, its tone filled with sorrow and desperation. Daniel looks at the spirits, his heart heavy with guilt and sorrow. These are the souls of those who were trapped here by his ancestors, their lives taken by the curse. And now, it is up to him to release them, to finish the ritual that will set them free. The spirits are calling to him, beckoning him toward the altar. The air is thick with their presence, their voices rising in a cacophony of anguish. Daniel feels the weight of their cries pressing down on him, but he knows that this is his duty. The curse must be broken, and he is the only one who can do it. As Daniel steps forward, the spirits seem to part before him, their forms flickering as if they are fading into the shadows. He walks toward the altar, feeling the cold, the weight of the village's history pressing down on him. He stops before the book, its pages still glowing with that eerie light. He knows what he must do. Turning toward his friends, Daniel sees the fear in their eyes. They don't understand the full extent of the sacrifice he's about to make. They don't understand that it is the only way to end the curse. But Daniel knows that they will never be free unless he does this. "I'm sorry," Daniel says, his voice breaking, "but I have to do this." Without another word, Daniel turns back to the altar. The spirits gather around him, their wails growing louder, as if they are urging him to complete the ritual. He places his hands on the book and begins to recite the words written there, the incantation that will finish what was started so many years ago. The air crackles with energy as Daniel speaks, the power of the curse filling the church. The spirits begin to materialize around him, their faces twisted with anguish as they are drawn into the ritual. Daniel feels the weight of their presence, the pressure of their suffering, and he knows that this is the moment when the curse will be broken, or when it will consume him. As Daniel finishes the incantation, the church trembles violently, the walls shaking as if the very foundation of the village is being torn apart. The spirits are drawn into the center of the altar, their forms swirling around Daniel as they become one with the ritual. He feels their pain, their longing for release, and he knows that this is his sacrifice to make. The energy in the room becomes overwhelming, and Daniel feels himself being pulled into the ritual. His body aches with the weight of the curse, and he can feel his life force being drained as the spirits claim their freedom. His vision blurs, his body growing weaker as the curse consumes him. But as the spirits begin to fade into the light, their cries of anguish turning into sighs of relief, Daniel knows that he has done what was necessary. He has made the ultimate sacrifice to free Aldenbrook, to free the souls that have been trapped here for so long. As the last of the spirits fade into the light, Daniel's body crumbles to the floor, the weight of the curse finally lifted. The chapter ends with Daniel's sacrifice, marking a moment of both horror and release. The curse is broken, but at a great personal cost. The village of Aldenbrook is freed, but Daniel has paid the ultimate price. His journey of self-discovery, emotional growth, and supernatural confrontation has reached its peak, and now the village and its spirits can finally rest. The air inside the church grows still, the oppressive weight of the curse lifting, leaving a strange silence behind. The echoes of the spirits' cries, once so powerful and anguished, now fade into an unsettling calm. It's as though the entire village of Aldenbrook has exhaled in relief, the tension that had gripped it for centuries finally dissipating. But for Daniel, the world around him seems to darken. His body feels heavy, the life draining from it, and yet his mind is clearer than it's been in ages. He lies on the cold stone floor of the altar, gasping for breath, his chest rising and falling in shallow movements. His arms feel numb and his vision is blurry. The spirits, the ones that had been bound to the village for so long, have now passed into the afterlife, freed from their eternal torment. And in doing so, they have severed their ties to him, just as the curse has been broken. But despite this, Daniel knows that his sacrifice hasn't just been about freeing the spirits. It has been about freeing himself as well. The weight of his past, the guilt, the trauma had been lifted when he completed the ritual. The village had demanded a price, but in return, it had given Daniel the one thing he needed most: redemption. But as Daniel lies there, the weight of the moment pressing on him, he feels a shift, something that doesn't feel quite right. The silence, which had been comforting at first, is now suffocating, almost like a vacuum. The shadows in the corners of the church seem to stretch, darkening the room even further. And in the distance, faint whispers begin to return, growing louder and more urgent. Daniel can hear them clearly now, soft, persistent voices, murmuring in the dark. They seem familiar. He tries to push them away, to focus on the feeling of release, the understanding that the spirits have moved on. But the whispers persist, growing louder, more frantic, until they fill his ears entirely. You are not free. The voice is harsh, deep, and familiar. Daniel's eyes snap open, and he sits up with a jolt, his heart racing in his chest. His surroundings blur for a moment, but as his vision clears, he realizes something horrifying. The church has not returned to its peaceful state. Instead, the air is heavy with a thick, oppressive energy. The ground beneath him trembles, and the walls of the church groan as if the very building is alive. No, Daniel breathes, his voice shaking with disbelief. The spirits are gone. The curse should be lifted. What more is there? A figure materializes before him, tall, gaunt, its face obscured in shadow. The figure steps forward, the darkness swirling. Around it, like an impenetrable fog. Daniel's stomach clenches with a growing sense of dread as the figure steps closer, its presence suffocating. The figure's form solidifies, revealing itself to be something far more terrifying than a simple ghost. It is not a spirit of Oldenbrook. It is something ancient, something more powerful than anything Daniel has encountered. Its eyes burn with an unnatural fire, its voice cold and full of venom. You think you've freed them, the figure sneers, its voice like nails scraping against stone. You think you've broken the curse. But you're wrong, Daniel. You were never meant to free the spirits. Daniel's heart pounds in his chest as he stares at the entity. It's not human, nor is it any spirit he recognizes. It is ancient and malevolent, its power palpable in the air around them. It feels like something that has existed long before Oldenbrook itself, a force that has been quietly feeding off the village's suffering for centuries. The entity laughs, its voice echoing through the church like a mocking wind. You've been playing into my hands, Daniel. You've done exactly what I wanted. Daniel's stomach drops. What are you? I am the curse, the entity responds, its voice dripping with malice. I am the one who bound the spirits here, the one who made Oldenbrook my domain. Your ancestors did the ritual, yes, but it was I who gave it life. It was I who made sure the curse would never be broken. And now, the figure steps forward, and Daniel feels a surge of cold, dark energy pressing down on him. Now that you've completed the ritual, now that you've released the spirits, I can finally claim what's mine. Daniel stumbles backward, his body trembling with the realization of what's happening. The truth comes crashing down on him like a tidal wave. The curse was never just about the spirits, it was about him. It was about using his bloodline to feed a power older than anything he could have imagined. His sacrifice, the ritual he completed, wasn't an act of redemption. It was a trap. The entity smiles, its face now visible. Pale, withering skin pulled taut over bone, eyes like burning coals. You were never meant to break the curse. You were the final key to feeding my power. The spirits weren't my goal. You were. Daniel's heart races as the weight of the truth settles over him like a suffocating blanket. His family's involvement, his own actions, they were part of something far darker than he could have ever imagined. The ritual was never meant to free the village. It was meant to trap his bloodline forever, to feed the entity that has lived off the suffering of Oldenbrook. No, Daniel whispers, shaking his head, his voice breaking. I... I didn't know. I didn't know. The entity's smile widens, its lips curling into a cruel, twisted grin. Of course you didn't. The village was just a vessel, a means to an end. The real power, your power, was always the final peace I needed. Daniel feels his body weakening, the cold energy seeping into his bones. His vision blurs, and he feels his consciousness slipping, but he fights to stay awake. He can't let this be the end. He has to find a way to stop it. As the entity approaches, the shadows around them grow thicker, wrapping around Daniel like chains. The whispers grow louder, deafening in his mind. He can hear the tortured cries of the spirits, but they are no longer cries for freedom. They are cries of agony, of being used, manipulated, their souls feeding the entity's strength. With everything he has left, Daniel pushes himself to his feet, stumbling toward the altar. His hands shake as he grabs the book, the very book that had once given him the knowledge to break the curse. He flips through the pages frantically, desperate to find anything that might help him now, anything that might stop the entity from claiming his soul. The pages glow with a faint light, and as Daniel flips through them, something catches his eye. A final incantation, hidden within the ancient text. It is a last-ditch effort, a desperate spell that could send the entity back to the darkness, but it requires more than just Daniel's life. It requires the ultimate sacrifice, his very soul. No, Daniel whispers to himself, his heart breaking. He can feel the cold energy of the entity tightening around him, pulling him into its grasp. He knows that if he uses the spell, it will take everything he has. But it is the only chance to destroy the entity and free the village once and for all. The entity is almost upon him now, its form growing more tangible, more solid. Daniel knows that this is the moment when he must make the final choice. His heart aches with the weight of it all. He has already given so much, but the cost of freedom is greater than he ever imagined. He must either let the entity win or make the ultimate sacrifice. Daniel closes his eyes, drawing on every ounce of strength left in him. The voices of the spirits fill his ears, their cries urging him to act. His hand shakes as he places it on the altar, preparing to invoke the final spell that will break the entity's hold on Oldenbrook. As the entity reaches for him, Daniel speaks the words of the incantation, his voice steady and full of resolve. The power of the spell courses through him, the energy building until it feels like his very being is splitting apart. The entity screams, its form writhing as the spell takes hold, but it is too late. The entity is pulled back into the darkness from which it came, its scream echoing through the church as it vanishes. The church falls silent once again. The air clears, the oppressive presence lifting. The fog begins to recede, and the temperature slowly returns to normal. Daniel stands at the altar, his body trembling, but the weight of the curse has lifted. The village, the spirits. It's over, but the cost is great. Daniel collapses to his knees, his body worn and broken. The book slips from his fingers, its power fading into the air. He knows that the village has been freed, but at the cost of his soul. His body is weak, and he feels himself slipping away, the darkness creeping in around him. The chapter ends with Daniel's ultimate sacrifice. The entity has been destroyed, the curse lifted, and Oldenbrook is free at last. But Daniel, having given his soul to stop the evil, fades into the afterlife. The village is saved, but his journey ends in both tragedy and triumph. The spirits have found peace, and Daniel has fulfilled his role as the key to breaking the curse, leaving behind a legacy of both sacrifice and redemption. The moment Daniel completes the incantation and the entity is obliterated, The church falls into a profound silence. The kind of silence that feels like a vacuum, as if everything in the universe has held its breath and is waiting for the next moment. The oppressive force that had ruled Aldenbrook for centuries, the dark entity that had clung to the village and its people, has finally been vanquished. But with the entity's destruction, the balance of power in the village shifts, and a sense of calm begins to descend over the once tormented land. Daniel's body, frail and broken, crumples to the ground. His breath comes in shallow gasps as the energy he summoned to defeat the entity takes its toll. The air around him seems to hum with the remnants of the ritual, faint vibrations of something old and powerful, lingering on the edge of the world. The fog that had clung to the village is slowly starting to lift, revealing the true nature of the village beneath its shroud of darkness. Daniel's vision blurs, his mind struggling to hold onto the last vestiges of consciousness. He can feel his life slipping away. The cost of the ritual, his very soul, is now exacting its price. But as he lies on the cold stone floor of the church, he feels a strange sense of peace, knowing that Aldenbrook, the village that had held the curse for so long, is finally free. The spirits he had encountered, the ones bound to the land, are now at rest. He has done what needed to be done. Outside the church, the village begins to change. The rain that had poured down endlessly throughout the curse finally stops, the grey clouds parting to reveal the first glimmers of moonlight in what feels like an eternity. The streets of Aldenbrook, once damp and desolate, now feel strangely vibrant. The air smells fresher, the kind of air you breathe after a storm has passed, and the first signs of life begin to re-emerge. For the first time in centuries, the village feels alive. The plants, once overgrown and twisted, begin to straighten and reach toward the light. The trees, though aged, seem to regain their vitality, and the ground, once barren and unyielding, seems to soften underfoot. The buildings, though still weathered by time, appear less oppressive. The cracks and rot in the wood slowly healing as though the village itself is shedding its burden. This transformation, however, does not come without its consequences. The supernatural energy that had held the village in its grip is now dissipating, but it leaves behind traces of what once was. As the fog clears and the land begins to breathe again, Daniel's friends, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob, who are still in the church, look outside and witness the same transformation. They are awestruck by the sudden, inexplicable change, but there is no denying the fact that the village is finally beginning to release its painful past. I can't believe it, Sarah whispers, her voice filled with awe as she steps forward. It's like the village is breathing again. Sarah, Emma, and Jacob move closer to Daniel, who is still lying motionless on the altar. The air in the church feels different now. It's lighter, almost sacred, as if the very walls have shed the weight of centuries of suffering. The village is at peace, but Daniel is not. His body remains still, his eyes closed, and his breathing faint, as though he is holding on to the last slivers of life. Jacob, his voice breaking, kneels by Daniel's side. Daniel, come on, you did it. You did it, man. You broke the curse. The village is free. Emma steps forward, tears welling in her eyes as she looks at her friend. Daniel, please, don't leave us now. We're so close to the end. Please don't go. But Daniel's gaze remains distant. He knows that his journey has ended. His sacrifice was the key to ending the curse, and now the village is free, finally at peace. He is the last piece of the ritual, and the price of freedom is his life. For a long moment, there is no sound, only the gentle creaking of the church as it settles into its new state of calm. Then, in the distance, the sound of birds returning to the trees fills the silence. The first bird song in centuries, echoing through the air like a promise of rebirth. As Daniel fades from consciousness, his mind is pulled into an ethereal space. The transition is fluid, almost dreamlike. He is no longer in the church, no longer in Oldenbrook. Instead, he stands in a vast, empty space, dark, yet filled with a quiet light. There are no boundaries, no walls, just an infinite expanse that seems to stretch on forever. He doesn't know how long he has been standing there, but he knows that he is no longer alive. He is caught between life and death, between the world of the living and the world of the spirits. And then, slowly, a presence appears before him. It's familiar, comforting. It's his grandmother, the one who had warned him about Oldenbrook, the one whose tales of the village's curse had haunted his childhood. Daniel. Her voice is soft, filled with warmth and love. You've done it. Daniel looks at her, his heart aching. Grandmother, what is this place? This is the space between worlds, she explains. It's where souls go when they have fulfilled their purpose. You've freed Oldenbrook, and you've freed yourself. The curse is broken, and now the spirits can move on. But at what cost? Daniel whispers. I had to give my life for it. His grandmother smiles gently, her eyes filled with understanding. You chose to sacrifice yourself, Daniel, but you also chose to free others. That is the true power of the sacrifice. It is not the end, but the beginning of something new. Back in the village, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob watch as the mist continues to dissipate. They stand together, witnessing the final moments of Oldenbrook's transformation. The village is no longer the place it once was, haunted, cursed, bound by pain. Instead, it is a village reborn, the oppressive air lifted, and the spirits that had lingered for so long now free to move on. The sky is brightening, and the birds are singing, their songs rising in joyful harmony. For the first time in decades, the sun breaks through the clouds, casting warm rays of light over the village. The villagers, or what remains of them, begin to appear, faint figures, their forms translucent, as though they are stepping into the light for the first time in centuries. Sarah, Emma, and Jacob watch in awe as the spirits of the village rise, their faces peaceful now, their pain and torment finally released. It is a beautiful, bittersweet moment, one that signifies not just the end of the curse, but the closure of a chapter that has haunted them all. Daniel's body is still, his breathing slow and shallow, but the light of his sacrifice lives on, in the village, in the spirits, and in the freedom they have gained. Sarah, Emma, and Jacob stand in the church, the weight of the moment settling in their hearts. We need to honor him, Sarah says quietly, her voice filled with grief and gratitude. He did this for us, for everyone. Jacob nods, his eyes wet with unshed tears. He saved the village. He saved us all. The three of them stand together, a sense of shared grief and understanding among them. Though Daniel is gone, his spirit lives on in the village that is now free. His legacy will forever be a part of Oldenbrook, its final breath, its final release. As the sun sets over the village, casting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the village of Oldenbrook stands quietly in the glow of its rebirth. The trees sway gently in the breeze, their leaves rustling softly. The mist has cleared, and the land is bathed in the peaceful light of a new day. The spirits that once wandered in torment now move peacefully into the afterlife, their forms dissipating into the ether. Their cries have turned to whispers of gratitude, and their energy, once trapped, now flows freely with the winds. The village is at peace, no longer a place of torment, but a place of hope and rebirth. The final chapter of Oldenbrook's story comes to a close, but it is not an end, merely a new beginning. Daniel's sacrifice, while costly, has led to the village's redemption. Aldenbrook has finally been freed from its curse, and its spirits have been released. Daniel has given his life, but in doing so, he has ensured that the village will live on, free of the darkness that once held it in its grip. As the sun sets, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob stand together, knowing that the village has changed. And though Daniel is no longer physically with them, his spirit is a part of Aldenbrook forever. The village, once caught in an endless cycle of torment, can now breathe, live, and heal, its last breath a sign of freedom and peace. You're deep into the story now, and the horrors are only escalating. If you're still with us, don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments. Who else is staying up late to face this nightmare? Settle in. The terror continues. The village of Aldenbrook stands in a fragile, peaceful silence. The mist that once clung to the village like a suffocating veil has cleared, allowing the first rays of sunlight to break through the clouds, casting golden light over the now peaceful landscape. The transformation that began with Daniel's ritual, his ultimate sacrifice, has set the village free, releasing it from its long-held curse. The air feels lighter, no longer thick with dread and malice, but instead filled with the quiet hum of rebirth. As Sarah, Emma, and Jacob stand at the threshold of the church, gazing out over the village square, they are filled with a strange mixture of awe, sorrow, and relief. The church, which had once been a place of dread, is now a symbol of the village's salvation, and the spirits that had haunted Aldenbrook for so long are gone, freed by Daniel's sacrifice. The wind stirs the trees, the birds sing in the distance, and for the first time in a long while, the village feels alive again, its heartbeat synchronized with the world around it. Daniel's friends have been forever changed by the events of the past few days. The memories of the horrors they witnessed, the terror they experienced, will always remain with them. But there is also a profound sense of gratitude and closure. They can now begin to process the loss of Daniel, their friend who gave everything to free them, and honor the sacrifice he made to lift the curse that had bound them all. Sarah, Emma, and Jacob stand in the center of the square, taking in the transformation of the village. The dilapidated houses, once dark and decaying, now seem to hold a sense of quiet dignity. The cracked windows and sagging roofs no longer feel oppressive. Instead, they evoke a sense of nostalgia, a reminder of the history that Aldenbrook has survived. The ground, once barren and neglected, now shows signs of life. Flowers bloom where weeds once grew, and the air smells fresh, as though the village has been washed clean by the ritual. Despite the beauty of the scene before them, the emptiness that Daniel has left behind still weighs heavily on their hearts. His sacrifice was the key to ending the curse, and his soul now rests with the spirits of the village. But in the silence that follows his passing, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob cannot help but feel the absence of their friend. He is gone, but his legacy remains. They know that the village is free, but they also know that they will carry Daniel's memory with them for the rest of their lives. "We need to honor him," Sarah says quietly, her voice filled with reverence. Emma nods, wiping away a tear. "We owe him everything." Jacob stands silently beside them, his eyes staring into the horizon. He gave everything for us, for all of them. The three of them stand together in solemn silence, each reflecting on the weight of what has happened and what they must do next. Aldenbrook is free, but the journey isn't over yet. They must carry the memory of Daniel forward, ensuring that his sacrifice is never forgotten. As Sarah, Emma, and Jacob continue to stand in the village square, they feel the presence of the spirits. Though no longer tormenting or restless, their energy lingers in the air, a faint but comforting presence. The village's transformation from a haunted, cursed place to a peaceful haven has not only freed the spirits, but has also allowed them to move on to the afterlife. The village itself, once a prison, is now a place of redemption and healing. The trio walks slowly toward the center of the village, where the well still stands, its once dark water now clear and tranquil. The whispers that once plagued them are gone, replaced by the sound of the wind and the chirping of birds. They stop at the well, the final symbol of the curse that had bound the village for so long. As they stand there, they feel a gentle breeze sweep through the square, and for a moment it feels as though the spirits are surrounding them, offering their gratitude. The weight of their presence is no longer heavy. Instead, it is light, serene. The spirits are free. Their long torment finally ended. This is it, Sarah says softly, her voice filled with emotion. This is how it was always meant to be. Jacob, too, is moved by the sight. The village is at peace now, and Daniel, he was the one who made it happen. The trio stands in silence, honoring Daniel's memory and the spirits that have been set free. They know that the journey they've taken will shape them forever. The terror they experienced, the loss of their friend, and the release of the village's spirits are now a part of who they are. And though they will never forget the horrors they witnessed, they will also never forget the courage and selflessness that Daniel displayed in his final moments. As the days pass, Oldenbrook continues to transform. The once decaying houses, now stripped of their years of neglect, are beginning to be restored. The villagers who had once been trapped in the curse have moved on, but their presence is still felt, their lives woven into the fabric of the village's history. And with the curse broken, the land begins to heal. The soil, once barren and cold, is now fertile again. The crops that once withered under the weight of the curse now begin to grow, as though the earth itself has been freed from its torment. Sarah, Emma, and Jacob have become the stewards of this new beginning. They begin to rebuild the village, restoring the houses, planting gardens, and clearing the overgrown paths. The work is slow, but there is a sense of purpose and hope that wasn't there before. They are no longer the visitors who stumbled into the village out of curiosity. They are now part of its history, its future. They carry with them the lessons of the past and the memory of the friend who sacrificed everything to set them free. As they work, they begin to understand the true significance of Daniel's sacrifice. He gave his life not just to free the village, but to ensure that the future of Oldenbrook would be one of peace, of healing. The curse may have been broken, but it is Daniel's legacy that will live on in the village's rebirth. While the village of Oldenbrook is being restored, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob must also confront the healing process in their own hearts. The events they endured, the supernatural horrors, the emotional toll of Daniel's sacrifice, have left deep scars. But in the days following the curse's breaking, they begin to reflect on their journey and find a way forward, not just for the village, but for themselves. Sarah spends hours in solitude, walking through the village, touching the places where Daniel had once stood. She feels his presence in every corner of Oldenbrook, and in her heart, she knows that he has not truly left. His sacrifice, his love for his friends, has bound him to this place forever. And as the village heals, so too does Sarah, who learns to accept the pain of his loss and find strength in the memory of his courage. Emma, too, reflects on what she has learned. The horrors of the past few days have left their mark on her, but she finds solace in knowing that Daniel's sacrifice was not in vain. As she works to rebuild Oldenbrook, she begins to let go of the fear that once gripped her. She understands now that life is fragile, but it is also precious. The future of the village, and her own future, lies in the choices they make moving forward. Jacob, ever the skeptic, finds himself changed in ways he can't quite articulate. The village's transformation from a place of darkness to one of light forces him to confront the reality of the supernatural, something he had once dismissed. But it is not just the village that has transformed. He, too, has undergone a change. The loss of Daniel has been difficult, but in the silence that follows the curse's breaking, Jacob learns to appreciate the beauty of life, the fleeting nature of time, and the importance of friendship. As Oldenbrook continues to heal, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob decide to hold a final tribute to Daniel. They gather in the village square, the place where the curse was broken, and where Daniel made his ultimate sacrifice. The sun is setting, casting a soft golden light over the village. The air is warm and still. The peaceful atmosphere a stark contrast to the terror that once gripped this land. They stand together, hand in hand, as they remember their friend, the friend who gave everything to free them, to free the village. In that moment, they understand the true power of Daniel's legacy. He has given them the gift of life, of freedom, and of peace. And they will carry that gift with them always. Daniel, Sarah whispers, her voice choked with emotion. Thank you. We'll never forget you. Emma and Jacob nod, their faces filled with the same mixture of sorrow and gratitude. They know that they will carry Daniel's memory with them for the rest of their lives, and that the village of Oldenbrook will live on, free from the curse that once held it captive. As the tribute comes to an end, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob stand in the village square, their hearts heavy but full of hope. The curse has been broken, and the village of Oldenbrook is finally free. The spirits have moved on, and the land is healing. But it is Daniel's sacrifice, his courage, that has truly changed the course of the village's future. Oldenbrook, once a place of darkness, is now a place of light. A place where the past can be honored, the future embraced, and the memory of those who sacrificed for its freedom will never be forgotten. The days after Daniel's sacrifice are filled with quiet reflection and hard work. The village of Oldenbrook, once a place steeped in darkness and haunted by the supernatural forces that had bound it for centuries, now stands on the precipice of a new beginning. With the curse broken and the spirits of the village finally at rest, the air itself feels lighter, as though the very land is breathing a sigh of relief. Oldenbrook, which had been trapped in a cycle of despair, is now beginning to heal. The transformation is both literal and metaphorical. The village's physical decay is slowly being repaired, but there's also a deeper change taking place, one that is felt in the hearts of those who remain. Sarah, Emma, and Jacob have spent these days working tirelessly to restore the village. What was once a ghost town, abandoned and forgotten, now seems to pulse with the quiet hum of life. The streets are being cleared of the overgrown weeds and debris that had once suffocated them, and the buildings, though still weathered, begin to regain their former dignity. The community that once lived in Oldenbrook, though long gone, still lingers in the village's bones, and its memory is beginning to come alive in new ways. The trio works together, planting seeds of hope as they repair the town. It's slow, painstaking work, but there's a new sense of purpose, a connection to something deeper. The village that had once been a prison for the spirits of the past is now becoming a sanctuary for those who survived, for those who will live to tell its story. Sarah, more than anyone, feels the weight of Daniel's absence. She is the one who had been closest to him, the one who knew the depths of his soul and the burden he carried. His sacrifice was not just a supernatural act, it was personal. He had chosen to give everything, not only for the village, but for the people he loved. In the quiet moments of the day, when the work slows and the village rests, Sarah finds herself walking through the village, retracing the steps she had taken with Daniel in the past. The empty spaces, the places where he had stood, now feel filled with his presence. She can almost hear his voice, his laughter, as if he's still there beside her. She speaks to him in her thoughts, thanking him, apologizing for the pain that she had not been able to ease in his final moments. The grief that Sarah feels is profound, but it is not one that will cripple her. Daniel's legacy is woven into the fabric of Aldenbrook itself, and every step she takes in the village feels like a tribute to him. It's hard to imagine a future without him, but Sarah knows that she must honor his memory by helping the village rebuild, not just the houses, but the spirit of the community, the sense of belonging that Daniel had always believed in. One day, as Sarah stands by the now clear well in the village square, she feels the weight of Daniel's sacrifice in her chest. She runs her fingers over the stone, as if touching the very essence of what Daniel had given. The tears come, not just for the loss of her friend, but for the village that had been freed through his selflessness. She can feel his presence in the village, the whispers of his soul, the echo of his love for them, reverberating in the very air. But in the quiet grief, Sarah finds strength. She can't bring Daniel back, but she can carry his spirit with her. She can make sure that Aldenbrook never forgets the price that was paid for its freedom. She can ensure that the village flourishes in the way Daniel would have wanted. Emma, too, is deeply affected by what happened in Aldenbrook. The supernatural forces that had once been nothing more than stories to her are now a stark reality. The fear she once felt is slowly being replaced by a sense of respect and awe for the journey they went through. But her emotional journey is different from Sarah's. Emma feels the weight of Daniel's sacrifice, but she also feels a sense of empowerment in knowing that they were able to break the curse together. In the aftermath of the battle, Emma has thrown herself into the restoration of the village. She channels her grief into action, fixing homes, repairing the old community center, and helping to plant gardens. She finds solace in the physical work, in the act of rebuilding, as if in doing so, she can rebuild a part of herself that had been lost in the horrors they had faced. Emma also reflects on the lessons she's learned. She had always been someone who believed in the material world, the tangible, the logical. But what she's experienced in Aldenbrook has forced her to confront the reality of the supernatural, of things beyond her understanding. She has learned that life is fragile, but it is also precious. And she's learned to appreciate the fleeting moments, the quiet beauty of everyday life. She spends time at the village square, watching the children of the community, newcomers, survivors, play in the sunlight. It's a peaceful scene, one that Daniel would have loved. As she watches them, she thinks about the legacy Daniel has left behind. Aldenbrook will no longer be a place of fear. It will be a place where people can live, love, and heal. I will make sure Aldenbrook becomes a home for the living, Emma whispers to herself. She looks up at the sky, feeling a deep connection to the village and the spirits that have now passed on. For Daniel, and for all of them. Jacob, the skeptic, has had the most difficult time coming to terms with the supernatural events in Aldenbrook. The experience has shattered his worldview, forcing him to confront things he once thought impossible. But as the village is rebuilt and the spirits find peace, Jacob begins to realize that his skepticism, his need for proof and logic, is not enough to explain what they went through. There is something beyond the physical world, something greater than himself, and he cannot deny it any longer. Jacob finds himself spending long hours working with Sarah and Emma, not just on the physical restoration of the village, but on the emotional healing that it requires. The land is healing, but so are they. And Jacob understands now that healing is a process, not just for the village, but for themselves as well. He doesn't know exactly what his future holds, but he knows that Aldenbrook has changed him. And though he will never fully understand, The supernatural forces that haunted the village, he accepts that some things are beyond comprehension. The village now feels like a place of peace, a place where people can live without fear. And for Jacob, the real change is in his heart. He realizes that Oldenbrook and the friendship he shared with Daniel has given him a new perspective on life. It's not just about surviving, it's about living, about connecting with others, with the world around you. The days pass, and the village of Oldenbrook continues to transform. The houses are repaired, the gardens bloom, and the land flourishes. But there is one final task that Sarah, Emma, and Jacob must complete. They need to honor Daniel's memory, not just with words, but with action. They need to make sure that his sacrifice is not forgotten, that his legacy lives on in the village he saved. In the heart of the village, they decide to build a small memorial, a simple stone monument inscribed with Daniel's name and a few words, "The one who freed us." It is a tribute to him, to the man who gave everything for the village he loved, and for the friends who would carry on his memory. As they stand before the monument, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob hold hands, knowing that this moment, this tribute, is the culmination of everything they've gone through. They've survived the curse and they've emerged stronger. And they know that Daniel, though gone, will always be a part of Oldenbrook, always a part of them. The sun sets behind the monument, casting a soft golden light over the village. The air is filled with the sounds of children playing, of birds singing, and of the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. The village is no longer a place of death. It is a place of life, of new beginnings. And Daniel's spirit lives on, not in the shadows, but in the hearts of those who loved him, and in the land that will forever bear his legacy. In the final moments of Part 12, the village of Oldenbrook is reborn. The curse has been lifted, the spirits freed, and Daniel's sacrifice has led to a future where peace and healing can take root. His friends, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob, have been irrevocably changed by the experience, and they now carry Daniel's memory with them as they rebuild their lives and the village. Oldenbrook, once a place of torment, is now a sanctuary, a place where the past can be honored and the future embraced. The final tribute to Daniel stands as a symbol of hope, a reminder of the price of freedom and the power of self-sacrifice. And in the quiet of the night, when the wind rustles through the trees and the village rests under the stars, Daniel's spirit is at peace, knowing that he has set the village free. Although Oldenbrook is now at peace, the ripples of Daniel's sacrifice continue to affect everyone who remains. The village, once dark and haunted, is now bathed in sunlight, its streets lined with new life and hope. But the transition from a cursed past to a hopeful future is never smooth. The village, now free, has begun to show signs of reawakening, its past far from forgotten, but instead integrated into the fabric of its healing. Sarah, Emma, and Jacob stand together near the edge of the village, overlooking the land they have worked tirelessly to restore. The house they've rebuilt now stands as a testament to their resilience, each brick and timber a reminder of their personal journey. Despite the physical changes to the village, something in the air is still unsettled, a tension lingering beneath the surface that no one can ignore. Though the curse has been broken, the land and the people still bear the scars of the past, and the village's history still has a grip on the future. Sarah, who has taken it upon herself to lead the restoration effort, notices that every so often there are strange occurrences that can't be explained. The wind seems to carry whispers, faint voices that float just beyond hearing. Her sleep is disturbed by dreams that feel too real, visions of the village's past, of the spirits who once roamed the land, their presence still clinging to the soil even after their release. These whispers are not malevolent, but they are persistent. At first, Sarah dismisses them, attributing the strange sensations to the emotional weight of everything they've been through. But as time passes, she realizes they are more than mere echoes. The village, it seems, is still working. Through its trauma, perhaps the spirits did not truly move on. They simply became part of the village itself, their essence rooted in the land, waiting for resolution that Daniel's sacrifice could not provide. One night, Sarah stands alone by the well, the place where Daniel had fought to free the spirits. As she stands there, she hears the whispers again, this time louder, clearer. She feels the presence of someone behind her, but when she turns, no one is there. The hairs on her neck stand on end as she whispers, "Are you still here?" She knows it's not just her imagination. The village has been saved, but the emotional and spiritual scars remain. The curse is broken, but the village's heart, its soul, still holds the memories of the countless lives that had been tied to the curse. And these memories are alive, still reverberating in the fabric of Aldenbrook, waiting to be understood. As Sarah grapples with the strange new sensations, Emma and Jacob begin to experience their own unique forms of unease. For Emma, it's the haunting sensation that she has become too connected to the village. She feels a strange pull whenever she walks through its streets, as though the very soil beneath her feet is drawing her in. She tries to ignore it, but the pull grows stronger, as if she's becoming too much a part of Aldenbrook to ever truly leave. Jacob, on the other hand, begins to notice small, inexplicable phenomena. A shadow that flickers out of the corner of his eye, an unsettling feeling that someone is watching him when he's alone. It's as if the land itself is alive with memory and emotion, responding to their presence. The walls of the village seem to shift, the air thick with energy that no one can understand. At first, they dismiss these experiences as residual fear or paranoia, side effects of the traumatic events they've lived through. But as time passes, they begin to question if their experiences are simply echoes of the past, or if something more is at work in Aldenbrook, something that was never truly vanquished despite the ritual. The trio finds themselves pulled toward the village's center once again, the place where the well stands. This time, though, it's not for the sake of rebuilding. There is something they need to confront, something that is still lingering beneath the surface, hiding in the land that they have so carefully tended. One evening, as Sarah, Emma and Jacob meet at the village square to discuss their plans for the future, a figure appears on the outskirts of the village. They don't notice him at first, as he's standing just outside the light cast by the lanterns. But as the figure steps closer, they feel the air shift. The temperature drops, and a cold gust of wind blows through the square. The figure's face is obscured, his features hidden by a cloak of shadow. But his presence is undeniable, intense, commanding. Before any of them can speak, the figure raises his hand, signaling for silence. His voice, when it comes, is deep and resonant, carrying with it an eerie calm. "You thought you freed this place," the figure says, his tone both mournful and accusatory. "You thought you ended it, but you were mistaken." The trio stiffens, their hearts pounding in their chests. Sarah steps forward, but her voice falters. "Who are you?" The figure steps into the light, revealing a face both unfamiliar and strangely known to them. His skin is pale, almost translucent, his eyes dark and hollow, yet burning with an energy that feels too ancient to comprehend. He is not a spirit. They can feel it in their bones. He is something older, something forgotten. "I am the keeper of Aldenbrook's past," the figure intones, his voice carrying a heavy burden. "I have waited here, in the shadows, to see if the curse would truly be broken, or if you would simply awaken something worse." Sarah, Emma, and Jacob exchange wary glances, the fear that had begun to fade creeping back into their hearts. What are you talking about? Emma asks, her voice barely a whisper. The village was not cursed by a force of malice, as you think, the figure explains. It was cursed by its own choices, its greed, its betrayal of those who came before. I was the one who helped contain the curse for so long, but with Daniel's ritual, something has changed. The land is more than just a place now. It is an entity, and it has awakened. The figure's words send a chill down their spines. What do you mean? Jacob demands, his voice shaking with both fear and confusion. The curse is broken. The spirits are free. There's nothing left to awaken. The figure shakes his head slowly, the motion a gesture of both pity and sorrow. Daniel did not merely break a curse. He broke a bond between the village and the land. The land, once tied to the people who lived here, has grown sentient, but it was kept in check for centuries. The curse wasn't just a supernatural affliction, it was a pact. Now that the pact is broken, the land's true nature is coming to the forefront. The group stands in stunned silence as the implications of the figure's words settle in. The village was never truly free, not entirely. The pact that had bound the land to the people had held the land's true power at bay. But now, with the pact undone, Aldenbrook has begun to reveal its true form. What does it want? Sarah asks, her voice trembling. It wants to be whole again, the figure replies. And it wants what it was promised. It demands something in return. The village itself seems to react to the figure's words. The wind picks up, swirling, through the square with an unnatural force. The buildings creak as if they are awakening from a long slumber. The ground beneath their feet begins to shift, and the air thickens with a dark energy that threatens to suffocate them. The trio looks to the figure, who stands unmoving, his eyes filled with a knowing sorrow. You have freed the spirits, the figure continues, his voice heavy. But in doing so, you have awakened the true curse of Aldenbrook. It is not the spirits that you should fear, but the land itself. As the last words leave his lips, the village square begins to crack. The earth shifts, and the ground trembles violently. The village, once peaceful, is now on the verge of chaos. As the earth shakes beneath them, the trio realizes that they now face a choice. They can attempt to stop what has been awakened, or they can allow the land to reclaim its true power. The curse is no longer simply about spirits, but about a force older than they could have imagined, an entity tied to the very essence of Aldenbrook. In this moment of choice, the trio must confront their deepest fears and desires. Will they destroy what has been awakened, potentially trapping the village in an eternal cycle of torment? Or will they make a new pact with the land, learning to coexist with the forces they have unleashed? As the trembling of the earth beneath their feet intensified, Sarah, Emma, and Jacob struggled to stay grounded, the air now thick with a raw, oppressive energy. The village, once a silent witness to their struggles, seemed to have come alive, its bones creaking and groaning, protesting the breaking of the ancient pact. The figure, who had emerged from the shadows of Aldenbrook's forgotten history, stood still, his eyes burning with the weight of knowledge, watching the trio with a solemn expression that spoke of a fate already set in motion. Why now? Sarah's voice trembled, fear and confusion intertwining in her words. Why is it awakening now? We've already freed the spirits. We've broken the curse. The figure's response was slow and deliberate, his tone heavy with the gravity of his words. You freed the spirits, yes. But what you didn't understand was that the curse was not just a binding of souls. The village itself, its land, its very heart, was part of that curse. The spirits were its wardens, yes, but the pact that bound them also bound the land to the people. You've released one, but not the other. What does it want? Emma asked, her voice rising in panic, her hand instinctively reaching for Jacob's. She had seen enough, too much to ever be comfortable again. What does it demand? The land demands what was promised, the figure replied cryptically. It was bound by the pact, a pact made by your ancestors. They bargained for peace, but that peace came at a cost, a price you are now paying. The land has awoken, and with it, the debt must be paid. Sarah, who had stood motionless as the figure spoke, finally took a step forward, her gaze fixed on the well in the center of the square, the place where so much had begun, where Daniel had given his life to free the village. It was here, in the heart of Aldenbrook, that the pact had been sealed, and it was here that the consequences of their actions now unfolded. The whispers had been right all along. There was more to the land than they had understood. The village was not just haunted by spirits, it was haunted by its own past. The pact, Sarah murmured almost to herself. Our ancestors, they didn't just make a deal with the spirits, they made a deal with the land itself. The figure nodded, his eyes darkening. The land was once a thriving community. The pact was forged to prevent its collapse, to hold back a terrible force. But it could only hold for so long. Now, it seeks what it was promised. Then how do we stop it? Jacob's voice was strained, but there was a sense of urgency behind it. We can't just let the land take whatever it wants. We've already paid enough. You cannot simply stop it, the figure said, shaking his head slowly. The pact was never meant to be broken, but it was broken nonetheless. The force that has awakened is not something you can defeat with force. It is the very essence of the land, the blood that has soaked into the soil for centuries. A heavy silence fell over the group, each of them grappling with the weight of what was being said. The very foundation of their lives, of Aldenbrook's existence, was being threatened by a force that had been dormant for centuries. The awakening had begun, and now they had to decide how far they were willing to go to contain it, or whether they would allow it to run its course. I don't understand, Emma said, her voice barely a whisper. If the land is alive, then what does it want with us? What is its purpose? The figure paused, his gaze flickering to the horizon, where the village's edge met the forest beyond. The land is not inherently evil. It was once a place of life, a place of harmony. But when the pact was made, the land became bound to the people's desires, their needs, their ambitions. As the pact grew older, it became more of a prison than a protector. And now, it wants to be free. But freedom comes at a cost. Sarah's mind was racing. Everything they had done, the ritual, Daniel's sacrifice, the breaking of the curse, had inadvertently allowed the land to reclaim its own power. And now, the village was caught between the remnants of a past it could not escape and a future it could not fully understand. Is there a way to make things right? She asked quietly, her voice strained with the weight of the responsibility she felt. Can we fix it? Can we restore the balance? There is one way, the figure replied, but it will require a sacrifice. The figure's words hung heavily in the air. The trio stood at the crossroads of fate, staring at the task before them, uncertain of their ability to navigate it. The land of Aldenbrook, alive with energy and purpose, demanded something in return for its peace. But what could they possibly give that would appease its ancient hunger? The sacrifice, Sarah echoed, her mind racing. What kind of sacrifice? The figure stepped closer, his eyes glowing faintly in the darkening light. The land has already taken what it was promised, its essence, its energy, its connection to the people. But there is a way to contain it, to restore peace without destroying the land itself, to balance the forces that have been set into motion. Tell us, Jacob demanded, stepping forward. Tell us what we need to do. The figure's gaze softened, as if preparing them for the truth they would have to face. The land is a living entity, but it is bound to the blood of your ancestors. The pact was forged through a sacrifice, a life given willingly. The only way to restore the balance now is for someone to take the place of what was given before. Someone must give themselves to the land to maintain the delicate balance. Sarah, Emma, and Jacob exchanged stunned looks. The weight of what the figure was saying was like a crushing weight on their shoulders. To save Alden Brook, someone would have to make the ultimate sacrifice. Someone would have to bind themselves to the land, just as their ancestors had done. Centuries ago, the cycle would continue, but at what cost? What does that mean? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Who would give themselves up for this? The figure's answer was simple and chilling. One of you must take the place of the blood that was once given. You must become the guardian of the land to ensure that the peace remains intact. For what felt like an eternity, no one spoke. The air hung heavy with the realization of what was being asked of them. They had already lost so much: Daniel, their innocence, their understanding of the world they lived in. Could they lose more? Was the peace they had fought for truly worth the cost of another life? I can't, Emma said, her voice trembling. I can't ask one of us to do that. We've already lost so much. I won't do it, Jacob echoed, shaking his head. We've paid enough. But Sarah, her mind spinning with the consequences of the figure's words, knew that there was no other choice. They had come this far, and the village was at stake. The spirits were at rest, but the land's power was far more potent than they had understood. The land wanted peace, but it demanded something in return. I'll do it, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the storm that raged within her. She stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. I'll take the place of the pact. It has to be me. Emma and Jacob turned to her, their faces filled with shock, their voices filled with protest. No, Sarah, you can't, Emma cried, stepping forward to grab her arm. You don't have to do this. But Sarah shook her head gently. It's the only way. The land is not evil. It's not about destruction. It's about balance. I can do this. I have to. The figure watched silently, his expression unchanged. He had already known that the one who would take the place would be Sarah. She was the leader, the one who had brought them all together, the one who had already shown the courage to make the hard choices. As Sarah stepped toward the center of the village square where the well stood, she felt a sense of calm settle over her. The land, the spirits, the village. It all felt as though it had led her to this moment. She could feel the ancient pulse of the earth beneath her feet, the vibrations of its energy running through her body. She had come to understand that this was not just a sacrifice, it was a restoration, a healing of the bond between the land and the people. It was the only way to ensure that the village would not slip back into darkness. As Sarah knelt by the well, the figure raised his hands in a gesture of quiet command. The air grew thick with power, the land's energy coalescing around her, its ancient strength intertwining with her own. The ceremony began, the land's essence enveloping Sarah, binding her to it, to the village. In this moment, Sarah understood that she was not just saving Alden Brook, she was becoming a part of it. She was the guardian, the protector of the land's legacy. The final incantation was spoken, and the land began to settle. The whispers that had once haunted the village grew fainter, replaced by a sense of tranquility. The forces that had once threatened the village, the dark energy that had clung to it for centuries, were now gone. The land had been healed. Alden Brook was free. As Sarah stood in the village square, her connection to the land deepened. She felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. The land was now a part of her, its history, its power, and its future, all woven into her very being. She was no longer just Sarah, She was the keeper of Oldenbrook's spirit, its guardian. Jacob and Emma stood by her side, their faces. The morning after Sarah's connection with the land is forged, the air feels different. The village of Oldenbrook has transformed, but there is a quiet, unsettling peace that now permeates the air. The once oppressive atmosphere that had hung over the village for centuries has finally lifted. The oppressive, supernatural forces that had once governed the land have been appeased, but there's a lingering stillness, something deeper, more profound, that leaves Sarah feeling unmoored. Sarah stands in the village square, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The sun rises over the horizon in a quiet display of color, but the beauty of the morning is tempered by the awareness of what she has become, the guardian of Oldenbrook, the land's protector. The weight of the land's power presses down on her, and although the village seems peaceful, Sarah cannot shake the feeling that she is no longer just a part of it. She is it. Every step she takes now is in sync with the pulse of Oldenbrook, a steady rhythmic beat that is both grounding and confining. The land feels alive beneath her feet, its power coursing through her veins. She knows that this transformation is not just about healing, it's about becoming intertwined with the village's very soul. And while she carries a profound sense of responsibility, there is also a feeling of isolation. She is now the keeper of Oldenbrook's past, present, and future. And the knowledge that she is the only one who can protect it brings both peace and dread. Emma and Jacob, too, are feeling the weight of what has occurred. Oldenbrook has been freed, and Sarah has taken the mantle of its protector. But the world they knew is forever altered. Emma's connection to the village is deeper now than it ever was before, and she feels it in her bones. The pull of the land, the whisper of the earth beneath her feet. It is as though the village has become an integral part of her soul, and she cannot escape it. She stands by the river that flows through the village, the water sparkling in the sunlight, but her thoughts are far from the beauty of the scene. Every step she takes feels heavy, laden with the knowledge that Sarah's sacrifice is not just for the village, it's for the future of their community, a future now inextricably tied to the land itself. Jacob, too, feels the tension of the land's awakening. His skepticism, once a defining feature of his character, now feels like a distant memory. He had witnessed the supernatural forces of Oldenbrook firsthand, and he had been part of breaking the curse. But the nature of the pact and the responsibilities it placed on Sarah have altered him. He can no longer deny the mystical forces that govern the world. They are real and they are powerful. They meet Sarah at the heart of the village, the well that had once been the epicenter of Oldenbrook's curse, now standing as a symbol of healing and peace. But Sarah, for all her strength and resolve, looks like someone who has been altered in ways they cannot comprehend. She is no longer the same person who first arrived in the village, a young woman full of hope and uncertainty. She is the land, now a part of its soul, its protector. "Sarah?" Emma calls, her voice soft but heavy with concern. "Are you all right?" Sarah turns toward her, her eyes steady and filled with a quiet intensity. "I'm fine," she says, but the words feel hollow to her own ears. "But I know things now, things I didn't before. The land's voice, its essence, is in me. I hear it, feel it. It is not just an awakening, it is a burden." Jacob steps closer, his brow furrowed. "A burden?" His voice is thick with concern. "You've saved the village. This is what we fought for. This is the peace Daniel died for." Sarah nods slowly, but there is a shadow in her eyes. "Yes, but peace comes at a cost, Jacob. I'm not just the guardian of Oldenbrook. I'm the land itself. Its pulse, its will, it all runs through me. I cannot escape it." Emma steps forward, her hand gently resting on Sarah's shoulder. "You're not alone. We're with you. We've been through so much together, and we'll face whatever comes next. together. But Sarah's gaze is distant, her thoughts far from the present. "I'm not sure I can do this alone," she whispers. "The land, the spirits, they're all still here, their memories, their desires, they've fused with me and I can't ignore them. I can't escape them. There's a price for everything." As the days pass, Sarah finds herself growing more attuned to the land's will. The whispers that once seemed like echoes now feel like commands, urging her to act, to maintain the balance. Every decision she makes, every step she takes, is weighed against the pulse of Oldenbrook. And with each passing day, the pressure builds. She feels the weight of the land's desires, not just the quiet hum of its peaceful slumber, but the darker undercurrents, the unmet needs. The village is no longer just a place. It is a living, breathing entity that demands to be nourished, protected, and revered. Sarah has become its steward, and the task is heavier than she had imagined. One evening, after a long day of overseeing the restoration of the villagers' homes, Sarah walks alone through the woods that surround Oldenbrook. The trees, once dark and ominous, now stand tall and proud, their branches stretching toward the sky. But there is something eerie about the calm, something that sets her on edge. She hears a rustling in the leaves, the unmistakable sound of something moving through the forest. She pauses, her senses alert, her connection to the land drawing her in. The whispers are louder now, urging her to follow. She moves cautiously through the woods, her footsteps barely making a sound. The rustling continues, growing louder as she approaches. Then suddenly she stops. In front of her stands a figure, cloaked in shadows. It is the same figure who had warned them before, the one who had called the village's pact into question. But this time, he is not just a figure of warning. He is a presence, an entity connected to the very essence of Oldenbrook itself. "You've come," the figure says, his voice tinged with both relief and something darker. "You've accepted the land's call. It is time to finish what was started." Sarah's heart races, the weight of his words sinking deep into her bones. "What do you mean?" she asks, her voice trembling. The figure's gaze darkens. "The land has made its choice. You have embraced its power, but now you must decide what you will do with it. The pact, the promises made, they are not fully resolved. The land requires more than just guardianship. It requires a sacrifice to sustain it." Sarah's breath catches in her throat. "A sacrifice?" she whispers. "What kind of sacrifice?" The figure steps closer, his presence growing more intense. "The balance cannot be maintained with just a guardian. The land demands more, something in return for the peace you have secured. The cost of its freedom has not yet been paid." Sarah's heart pounds in her chest as the figure's words sink in. She thought that by becoming the guardian of Oldenbrook, she had fulfilled the land's demands. But now, it is clear that the cost of peace is not just the passing of time. It is a continued debt. A debt that, like the land itself, must be paid in full. "I don't understand," Sarah says, shaking her head. "What more can I give? I've already bound myself to the land. What more can it possibly want?" The figure's expression is somber. "The land requires a price. The memories of its people, its past, its promise. They are yours now to bear. And with them comes the weight of the land's future. You are the keeper, yes, but you must also protect the village's future, and that future comes at a cost." Suddenly, Sarah understands. The land's demand is not just for peace. It is for the continual protection of the village's legacy, the history of those who lived and died within it. It is not a one-time sacrifice. It is a lifelong commitment. And Sarah is bound to it, forever. "I can't do this alone," Sarah whispers, her voice breaking. I can't carry this weight by myself. Back in the village, Emma and Jacob are still processing the events that have unfolded. The transformation of Sarah, her acceptance of the land's will, and the weight of the pact have all shifted the dynamics of their relationships. While they continue to rebuild the village, there is a growing distance between them and Sarah, a gap that is both physical and emotional. Emma, who has always been the one to put others first, finds herself at odds with the knowledge that Sarah is now burdened with the land's desires. She wants to help, wants to ease Sarah's burden, but she doesn't know how. The responsibility Sarah carries is too great, and Emma feels helpless in the face of it. Jacob, too, feels the weight of what's been asked of Sarah. He watches her from a distance, his once firm skepticism now replaced with an understanding of the forces at play. He sees how Sarah has changed, how the land has shaped her, and he feels a deep sense of both admiration and fear. He wants to support her, but there is a growing uncertainty about what the future holds for Oldenbrook and for them. As Sarah continues to bear the burden of the village's past, present and future, the trio must confront their place in Oldenbrook's new world. The village is no longer just a place. It is a living entity, shaped by the choices they have made. The cost of peace, of freedom, is greater than any of them could have imagined. Sarah's journey has led her to this moment of truth. She is the guardian, but she is also the keeper of a legacy that will continue to demand sacrifices. Her choice to accept the land's call has shaped not only her fate, but the fate of Oldenbrook itself. The morning light stretches across the village of Oldenbrook, spilling into the streets that are now brimming with life. The curse that had haunted the village for centuries has finally been broken, but the land itself has become something new, a living entity, bound by Sarah's sacrifice. The village, once plagued by shadows, now seems to breathe, its pulse aligned with the steady beat of Sarah's heart. As Sarah walks through the square, she feels the land's connection to her, its will humming beneath her feet like an ancient drum. Each step she takes is in tune with the land, and with every breath, she feels the weight of the responsibility that has been placed upon her. She is the guardian of Oldenbrook, its protector, its keeper. But with that role comes an unrelenting burden. In the past, Sarah had been a young woman who dreamed of a life outside of Oldenbrook. She had never thought that the village, with all its dark history, would become her future. But the land had chosen her, and now she carries the village's legacy on her shoulders. The air around her feels thick with its demands, its needs, its hunger for balance. Every decision she makes is weighed against the land's pulse, and with each day the connection deepens, tethering her more to Oldenbrook's very essence. Yet, there is a part of her that feels disconnected. Sarah has always been a protector, by nature, but this is different. The responsibility is not just about saving the village from external threats. It is about maintaining an eternal balance between the land and its people. She feels as though she is no longer fully herself. She is a part of the land, as much as she is a part of its history. As Sarah's feet carry her through the streets, she cannot help but notice how Oldenbrook has transformed. The houses, once broken and abandoned, now stand proud. The streets, once empty, are now alive with activity as people begin to return to the village, drawn by its newfound peace. The land has responded to her sacrifice, but the price of that peace is yet to be fully understood. The village no longer feels like a place filled with ghosts and shadows, but it is still haunted. Sarah can feel the whispers of the past, the spirits that had once roamed the land, now fused with the earth itself. They are not gone. They are woven into the soil, into the trees, into the very air. She feels their presence every day, and they watch her, waiting for her next move. They are no longer trapped. They are free, but they are also eternally connected to Aldenbrook. Emma and Jacob, who have spent so much time rebuilding the village alongside Sarah, are also feeling the weight of the changes that have taken place. They both see how Sarah has changed. The energetic, determined woman they once knew has become something else, something more, something less. Sarah is the land now, a part of it, and in many ways, she is losing herself in the process. Jacob, once the skeptic who questioned everything, now feels a deep unease. He watches Sarah with a growing sense of worry, but he does not know how to reach her. The changes in her are subtle, but they are undeniable. She is no longer the same woman who stood beside them during the battle against the curse. He cannot explain it, but something is off. He can feel it in his bones. Jacob, who had always been driven by logic, now finds himself caught in a world he does not understand. The supernatural forces that had once seemed distant, like stories from a childhood dream, are now real. He has seen what the land can do, what it has done to Sarah, and he feels the tension between what he understands and what he now believes. He spends more time in the village square, trying to make sense of the changes. The land feels different under his feet, the air colder, sharper. He has always been a man of reason, but now, as the earth hums beneath him, he cannot deny that something far greater than he is at play. And with that realization comes the fear of what Sarah might become. Emma, too, is struggling. She sees Sarah's burden, but she also sees the distance growing between them. It isn't just the village that's changing, it's their friendship. The bond they once shared, forged in the fires of adversity, now feels strained. Sarah is so consumed by the weight of the land's demands that she cannot fully connect with Emma and Jacob the way she once did. Emma tries to reach Sarah, but the connection between them feels fragile, like a thread pulled taut, ready to snap. The Sarah she knew is still there, but she is buried under layers of responsibility and duty. Emma misses the laughter they once shared, the ease of their friendship. Now every conversation with Sarah feels like it's tainted by the weight of her role as the guardian. One evening, as the three of them sit in the village square, Emma watches Sarah, her face bathed in the soft light of the setting sun. She tries to reach out to offer comfort, but the words feel hollow in her throat. She knows that Sarah's transformation is necessary for the survival of Aldenbrook, but it comes at the cost of their friendship, and Emma is struggling to reconcile that reality. "Sarah," Emma says softly, breaking the silence that has settled between them. "You've carried so much. I know it's hard, but you don't have to do this alone. We're here with you." But Sarah only offers a faint smile, her eyes distant, as if she's no longer fully present. "I know," she says, her voice tinged with exhaustion. "But I have to do this. The land, it needs me." Emma wants to say more, to press, but she doesn't know how. She can see the struggle in Sarah's eyes, but she also sees something else, a sense of resignation, as if Sarah has already accepted that this is her fate. Emma doesn't want to lose her friend, but she's afraid that the Sarah she once knew is slipping away, leaving behind someone who is more a part of Aldenbrook than she is a part of their world. As the days pass, the whispers become more insistent. Sarah hears them in her dreams, and sometimes when she walks through the village, she can hear them in the rustling of the trees, in the wind that blows through the streets. The land speaks to her, its voice an unyielding force. It tells her what must be done, what sacrifices must be made to keep the peace. It demands more than she can give, and she feels herself being pulled in every direction. There is a part of Sarah that longs for the life she once had, for the days when she was simply a person, not a part of the land itself. But that part of her is growing faint, drowned out by the land's constant pull. She tries to ignore the whispers, but they become louder each day, and she realizes that she cannot escape the land's will. She is bound to it, and it to her. One afternoon, as Sarah stands by the well in the village square, she feels the pull of the earth more strongly than ever. The voices, the demands, the weight of the land's power, all of it fills her. The well, once a symbol of the village's curse, is now a symbol of her own bondage, a reminder that she is no longer entirely free. The figure who had once warned them of the consequences of breaking the pact reappears, though this time he is not a harbinger of doom. He is a guide, a witness to the unfolding of events. He stands in the shadows, watching as Sarah struggles to maintain her balance, to carry the weight of the land's demands. The balance is delicate, the figure says, his voice low, almost a whisper. The land is not evil, but it is ancient. Its desires are not born from malice, but from a need that has existed long before you. The pact was never truly broken, only altered. Sarah turns toward him, her face a mixture of frustration and sadness. I can't keep doing this. The land is too much. It demands too much. The figure steps forward, his eyes filled with both compassion and sorrow. You are not alone in this, Sarah. The village has a stake in its future. The people of Aldenbrook must help you bear this burden. The pact, the balance, it cannot rest solely on your shoulders. For the first time since her transformation, Sarah feels the weight of the figure's words. It is not just her responsibility to carry the land's demands. The village, the people, they must share in the burden. Together, they can rebuild Aldenbrook. The days following Sarah's connection to Aldenbrook are filled with strange, unfamiliar sensations. The village, once a quiet and desolate place, now seems alive in a way that Sarah cannot describe. It breathes with her, its pulse aligned with hers. Every decision she makes reverberates in the soil, in the trees, in the wind that blows through the village. The weight of it all presses down on her constantly. At night, the whispers return, not in the form of the spirits that once haunted the village, but as the land itself, speaking through the rustling of leaves and the creaking of old wood. It demands her attention, urging her to tend to its needs, to restore balance wherever it is required. She is its guardian, its protector, but she is also its prisoner. She cannot escape the land's pull. The very essence of Aldenbrook has now intertwined with her being, and she is bound to it as much as it is bound to her. As Sarah walks through the village in the early hours of the morning, the first rays of sunlight casting long shadows across the cobblestones, she feels the weight of the land's power in the air. It hums beneath her feet, vibrating with an energy that is both familiar and alien. It is the energy of the land, the energy that she now commands and that commands her in return. She stops by the well, the place where it all began, the place where Daniel's sacrifice freed the spirits, where the curse was broken, and where her connection to the land was solidified. The well, once a symbol of the village's suffering, is now a symbol of Sarah's duty. Her responsibility as the guardian is a constant, like the weight of the earth pressing down on her shoulders. The land calls to her, its voice becoming louder and more urgent with each passing day. Emma, who had once been Sarah's closest friend, now feels the strain of their new relationship. She watches Sarah, who is no longer the woman she once knew. The land has changed her. She feels it in the way Sarah speaks, in the way she moves, in the way she looks at the village. There is a quiet distance in her eyes, as if she is no longer fully present with them. She is lost in the land's demands, and Emma feels herself drifting further away. It isn't just the village that's changing, it's their friendship. The bond they once shared, forged through countless trials and sacrifices, now feels strained. as though it is being torn apart by the force that now controls Sarah. Emma struggles to understand what is happening to Sarah. She knows that the role of guardian is a heavy burden, but she cannot shake the feeling that something more sinister is at play. The land's demands are not just physical, they are psychological, emotional. And as Sarah becomes more intertwined with Aldenbrook, Emma feels herself becoming a mere observer of her transformation, powerless to stop it. The distance between them grows each day, and Emma finds herself questioning what it means to be a friend to someone who is no longer fully themselves. She knows that Sarah is not the same person, but the fear of losing her completely terrifies Emma. She tries to reach out, to offer support, but Sarah is always distant, her mind and heart consumed by the land's will. One evening, Emma confronts Sarah, her voice filled with frustration and concern. "You're changing, Sarah," she says, her words heavy with the weight of everything they've been through. "I don't know how to reach you anymore. You're not the person I knew. The land is taking you from us." Sarah turns to her, her expression unreadable. But there is something in her eyes, something distant, something cold. "I'm still here, Emma. I haven't changed, but I have to do this. The village needs me." "It's not just the village that needs you," Emma says, her voice shaking. "We need you. You're not just the land's guardian. You're my friend. You're Jacob's friend." But Sarah, though she hears the words, doesn't feel them. The weight of her duty to Aldenbrook is too heavy to ignore, and the whispers from the land are too loud. The village calls to her and she cannot escape it. Jacob, who had once been the most skeptical of the supernatural forces in Aldenbrook, is now caught in a conflict of his own. He cannot deny the power of the land, the power that flows through Sarah, the power that governs Aldenbrook. But the more he witnesses Sarah's transformation, the more he begins to feel a sense of fear and unease. The Sarah he once knew is slipping away, replaced by someone who is as much a part of the land as she is a part of their friendship. Jacob knows that Sarah is the guardian of the land, but he can't help but wonder what that means for them. What will happen to their relationship if Sarah becomes more deeply entwined with the land? What happens when the very essence of the village controls her every move? Jacob's own sense of logic and skepticism tells him that something is wrong, that Sarah is no longer entirely herself. But he also knows that the land's power is too great to ignore. He is torn between his loyalty to Sarah and the growing fear that she is becoming something more, something otherworldly. One evening, Jacob takes a walk through the village, trying to make sense of everything. The village is peaceful now, but there is something unsettling about the stillness. The air feels thick with the weight of history, and Jacob feels as though the village itself is watching him, waiting for him to make a decision. As he walks past the now quiet streets, he feels a tug at his soul, a connection to the land that he cannot explain. He pauses for a moment, his gaze drifting toward the center of the village, toward the well. It is here that everything began. It is here that the pact was made, and it is here that he now feels the weight of his own responsibility, his connection to the village, to Sarah, to the land. Jacob realizes that he is not just a passive observer of Sarah's journey, he is part of it. And just as the land has claimed Sarah, it has also claimed him. He cannot escape it. He cannot escape the village's legacy. As the days pass, Sarah feels the land's hunger grow. It is not just the whispers that demand her attention. It is the physical signs of its power, the pull of the earth beneath her feet, the restless energy that surges through the village. She feels the land's desire for balance, for harmony, and for peace. But she also feels its darker side, the side that craves more, that demands sacrifices. It is not enough to protect Aldenbrook. She must feed it, and she is the one who must provide. The land's hunger is not easily sated. It is a thirst that cannot be quenched, a need that grows with each passing day. Sarah feels it in her bones, in the ache of her muscles, in the exhaustion that clings to her. She knows that if she does not feed the land, if she does not maintain its balance, it will consume her and everything she holds dear. One evening, as Sarah stands in the village square, she feels the land's power surge through her. The ground beneath her feet trembles, as though the village itself is alive, as though it is calling out for something. She places her hand on the earth, feeling its pulse, its need. The land speaks to her, telling her what it requires. She knows that the land's hunger can never truly be satisfied. It will always demand more. And the cost of that demand is something she is not sure she can bear. As Sarah continues to navigate her role as the guardian of Aldenbrook, she begins to feel herself unravel. The land's demands are relentless, and she is running out of ways to appease it. The whispers in her mind grow louder, more urgent. The voices of the spirits once freed are now calling to her, urging her to fulfill the land's wishes. The weight of her responsibility is suffocating, and she can feel herself slipping away. Her friends, Emma and Jacob, see the change in her. They see the strain in her eyes, the exhaustion in her movements. They see how the land has taken its toll, and they know that they cannot stand idly by while Sarah is consumed by the very thing she sought to protect. But what can they do? The land's power is too great, its demands too strong, and Sarah, bound by her duty, cannot free herself from the cycle. She is the land now, and the land is her. Sarah stands at the well once more, her hand resting on the stone, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her. She can feel the land's power coursing through her veins, its demands pressing on her soul. She knows that there is no easy answer, no simple way to satisfy the land's hunger. She cannot escape it, and neither can the village. And so, in the quiet of the night, Sarah makes a decision. She will continue to be the guardian, but she will also seek a way to balance the land's power with the needs of the people. She will find a way to coexist with the land, to feed it without losing herself. It will not be easy, and it will not be quick, but she will find a way to make peace, not just with the land, but with herself. For the first time in weeks, Sarah breathes deeply, the weight of her decision settling over her like a blanket. She is the guardian, and she always will be, but she will not be consumed by the land. She will find a way to live, truly live, with it. Aldenbrook has been reborn in ways none of its inhabitants could have imagined. The land that once trembled under the curse now pulses with a quiet energy, an unsettling force that pervades the air and the soil. The village is alive with new life, its homes restored, its streets once again filled with the sounds of children playing and birds chirping in the trees. Yet beneath this surface of peace, there lies a tension, a quiet undercurrent that grows stronger with each passing day. Sarah, now fully immersed in her role as the guardian of the land, feels its presence constantly. The village's heartbeat is her own, the pulse of Aldenbrook running through her veins like an unyielding river. She cannot escape it. She is bound to it, body and soul. The land demands her attention, and she can feel its hunger gnawing at her, its insatiable need for balance and sustenance. With every breath, she feels the weight of her responsibility, the weight of Aldenbrook's survival. The village that had once been a place of dread, of shadows and whispers, is now vibrant with life. But there is a darkness that lingers, a shadow that stretches across the land, feeding off Sarah's energy. The land is no longer just a place. It is a living, breathing entity that requires constant care. Sarah has become its steward, its protector, but the cost of that protection is far greater than she ever imagined. As Sarah walks through the village, she feels the land's presence in every step she takes. The earth beneath her feet hums with an energy that is both invigorating and exhausting. It is a connection she cannot break, a bond that ties her to Oldenbrook in ways she never expected. The once quiet streets now feel oppressive, as though they are closing in on her, their walls pressing against her chest, their air thick with an energy she cannot escape. Every decision Sarah makes is weighed against the land's needs. The people of Oldenbrook have returned, but the land is not content with simple restoration. It demands more. And Sarah must find a way to satisfy it, to feed it, to keep it from spiraling into chaos. But no matter how much she gives, it is never enough. The land's hunger is insatiable. She feels it most when the sun sets, when the village becomes quiet and still, and the whispers begin. The voices of the spirits, no longer trapped but now fused with the land itself, speak to her. Their words a constant hum in her mind. They are not angry. They are not vengeful. But they are persistent. Their presence a reminder of the debt Sarah must pay. They are part of her now, as much a part of her as the land itself. At night, Sarah lies awake, unable to sleep, her body restless, her mind racing. She cannot escape the land's pull, cannot escape the whispers that demand her attention. She feels herself slipping further from her old life, from the person she once was. She's no longer just Sarah. She is the land, and the land is her. Emma watches Sarah from a distance, concern etched on her face. She has always been the one to stand by Sarah, to support her in everything she does. But now, she sees the toll that being the guardian of Oldenbrook has taken on her. Sarah is distant, lost in the land's demands, her once joyful spirit now replaced by an almost cold detachment. Emma knows that Sarah is not just physically drained, she is emotionally exhausted. The weight of the land's hunger, the constant demands, are slowly eroding her. Emma doesn't know how to help. Every time she tries to reach out, Sarah pulls away, lost in the world of whispers and energy that is far beyond her control. "I don't know what's happening to her," Emma says one evening as she sits with Jacob on the porch of their home. She's not the same person. The land is taking her. I can see it in her eyes. Jacob looks out across the village, his brow furrowed with concern. She's the guardian now. This is what she chose. She has to carry this weight. But it's too much, Emma insists. She can't do it alone. We need to help her. Jacob sighs, his eyes drifting towards Sarah as she walks through the village, her steps slow and measured. She doesn't want our help. She thinks she can handle it herself. But I can see it too, Emma. She's changing. The land is consuming her. We have to figure out a way to help her before it's too late. Emma nods, her heart heavy with the weight of the situation. She knows that they can't just sit by and watch Sarah slip away, but she doesn't know how to reach her. The land's pull is too strong, and Sarah is too far gone. Jacob, too, is struggling. He has always been a man of logic, a man who believed in reason and skepticism. But after everything they've seen, after the supernatural forces they've faced, he knows that Oldenbrook is no longer just a village. It is something more. It is alive, and Sarah is its keeper. But the more he watches her, the more he feels a sense of fear creeping in. He doesn't know what's happening to her, and he doesn't know how to stop it. The village, once a place of uncertainty and fear, now feels oppressive, as though the very land is watching him, waiting for him to make a decision. The pull of the land is undeniable, and Jacob feels it in his bones. He is tied to Oldenbrook in a way he never expected. But the more he feels its pull, the more he wants to run. The land has claimed Sarah, and he fears it will claim him too. Night. As Jacob walks through the village, he feels the earth beneath him shift, as though the land is responding to his thoughts. He pauses, his heart racing, as the weight of the village's energy presses down on him. The whispering wind carries with it the faintest of voices, calling to him, urging him to accept the land's call. He feels the land's power surge through him, and for a moment, he wonders if he too will be consumed by it. Sarah, he mutters to himself, the name falling from his lips like a prayer. What are we supposed to do? As the days pass, the tension in Oldenbrook builds. The land, now fully awake, continues to demand more. The villagers, once relieved of the curse, are now caught in a new struggle. A struggle to understand what the land's demands mean for their future. The once peaceful community now feels like a pressure cooker, its people simmering under the weight of something they cannot see but can feel. The land is not just a passive entity, it is an active force, and it is hungry. Sarah, as its guardian, must feed it, must provide the energy it craves to maintain the balance. The village is no longer a place of simple living. It is a place of power, of energy, of hunger. And Sarah is its keeper, the one who must decide how to feed it, how to balance its needs with those of the people. But the land's hunger is insatiable. No matter how much Sarah gives, it always demands more. The villagers too begin to feel the effects of the land's power. Some of them, particularly the younger generation, begin to grow restless, as though the very air around them is charged with too much energy. They feel the land's pull, and they are drawn to it, not understanding its true nature. They see the peace that the land has brought to the village, but they do not understand the cost of that peace. The tension builds to a breaking point one evening, when a group of villagers, led by a young man named Thomas, decides to confront Sarah about the changes they have felt in the village. They demand answers, demand to know why the land's power is growing stronger, why the village feels different. "We don't understand what's happening," Thomas says, his voice shaking with fear and anger. "The land is changing us. It's changing you. We need answers." Sarah, exhausted and worn, stands before the group, her face a mask of resignation. She understands their fear, their confusion, but she cannot give them the answers they seek. The land's demands are beyond her control. She is its guardian, but she is also its prisoner. "I don't have the answers," Sarah says softly, "but I am doing the best I can. The land requires more, and I don't know how much more I can give." Thomas steps forward, his eyes wide with fear. "We didn't ask for this. We didn't ask for the land to consume us. We didn't ask for you to become its keeper. What happens when it takes her everything? What happens when there's nothing left?" The tension between Sarah and the villagers reaches a boiling point. Sarah realizes that she cannot carry the burden alone. The land demands too much, and she is losing herself in the process. She feels herself slipping away, her identity becoming indistinguishable from the land's needs. The village is caught between the past and the present, between the supernatural forces that have shaped it, and the people who must now live with those forces. In a moment of clarity, Sarah makes a decision. She will no longer bear the land's burden alone. She will share it with the people of Oldenbrook, with Emma and Jacob, with everyone who calls this place home. They must become a part of the land's cycle, not as its victims, but as its stewards. Together they will learn how to feed the land without losing themselves in the process. But the cost of this decision is great. The land will not be appeased easily, and the sacrifices will continue. The villagers will need to make difficult choices, and Sarah will have to guide them, no longer as its sole guardian, but as a leader who understands the true weight of the land's power. The village of Oldenbrook stands on the precipice of a new beginning. yet the land's presence continues to cast a long shadow over its future. The decision Sarah made, reaching out to the villagers and sharing the weight of the land's demands, has set the stage for a future that none of them fully understand. While the village is free from the curse that once bound it, the land's hunger remains an unyielding force, its power growing stronger with each passing day. The villagers gather in the square, where the well, the center of the village, both historically and symbolically, stands as a reminder of everything that has been sacrificed. It is here that Sarah made her decision to share the burden of the land, and it is here that the future of Oldenbrook will be decided. The whispers of the land, once a constant presence only for Sarah, now echo through the minds of those gathered, calling them to a responsibility they do not fully understand. The air is thick with tension as Sarah stands at the center of the group, her gaze steady but filled with uncertainty. She knows what is at stake. The land's demands cannot be ignored, but she also understands the importance of balance. No longer can she act alone. She must unite the villagers to protect Oldenbrook, to find a way to maintain peace without being consumed by the land's insatiable hunger. "I've made a decision," Sarah says, her voice carrying through the crowd. "The land cannot be fed by just one person. I've been its guardian, but I cannot bear its weight alone any longer. The village, all of us, must share in this responsibility. Together, we can find a way to live with the land, to feed it without losing ourselves." The murmurs ripple through. The crowd, some faces filled with uncertainty, others with fear. Emma, standing beside Sarah, watches her closely. She has seen the toll that being the guardian has taken on her friend, and she knows that this decision is as much about Sarah's survival as it is about Oldenbrook's future. But there is also a deep sadness in Sarah's eyes, a reflection of the burden she can no longer deny. She is not just a person anymore. She is the land, its pulse intertwined with her own. But she is also Sarah, the woman who once dreamed of a life beyond this village, the woman who had never asked to be its protector. And now, that part of her is fading, subsumed by the overwhelming force of the land's demands. As Sarah makes her speech to the villagers, Emma feels a deep, almost unbearable ache in her chest. She knows Sarah is right. The land cannot be maintained by one person alone, and it is Sarah's courage that has allowed them all to survive thus far. But there is something else in Sarah's voice, a resignation, a sense of surrender to a role that has slowly consumed her. The woman she once knew, the woman who laughed and dreamed and hoped, is slipping away, swallowed by the land's demands. Emma steps forward, her voice trembling with the weight of what Sarah has just said. "Sarah, you've carried this burden for so long. You've done more than anyone could ever ask, but you don't have to do this alone. We're here with you. We're ready to help." The crowd falls silent as Emma speaks, her words echoing in the space between them. Sarah's gaze flickers to her friend, a faint smile on her lips, but there is a sadness in her eyes that Emma cannot ignore. She knows that Sarah is not entirely here anymore. She has given herself to the land, and the land has claimed her. "I know you're here with me," Sarah says softly, "but it's not just about us. The land's hunger is insatiable, and if we don't find a way to balance it, it will consume us all. I've seen it. The land cannot be tamed by a few. It needs all of us." Emma swallows hard, her heart heavy. She understands the truth in Sarah's words. The land is alive, and it cannot be appeased by simple gestures. It demands sacrifices, sacrifices that none of them are truly prepared to make. But they have no choice. The village has been reborn, and they must now take responsibility for the land's future. "I'll help," Emma says, her voice firm. "We'll all help. We have to. Oldenbrook is our home, and we've lost too much already. Sarah looks at her eyes softening. Thank you, Emma. But we must be careful. The land doesn't just take, it gives too. We cannot be blinded by our desire to control it. We must learn to live with it, not fight against it. Jacob, who has watched this transformation with a mixture of fear and awe, feels the weight of Sarah's decision bearing down on him. He had never asked for this life, never asked to become part of Oldenbrook's tangled history. He had once been a skeptic, someone who believed in reason and logic. But Oldenbrook had shown him that there is more to the world than what can be explained by science. Now, as Sarah speaks of balance, of sharing the burden of the land's power, Jacob feels a deep unease. He has never felt more disconnected from everything he once knew. The village, once just a place on the map, is now a living, breathing entity that demands his attention, his energy, his commitment. I don't know how to live with this, Jacob admits quietly, his voice filled with doubt. I don't know if I can share in the land's power. I don't know if I can give myself to it like Sarah has. It feels too much. Sarah turns to him, her expression understanding. I know it's hard, but we don't have a choice. We have to find a way to coexist with the land. To understand it, to feed it, but also to take from it what we need to survive. It's not just about giving, it's about balance, and we're in this together. Jacob looks at the ground, his mind wrestling with the truth of Sarah's words. He knows that the village and its future is tied to the land, but can he truly become part of it, as Sarah has? Can he give himself to something that deep down he fears? As the days pass, the village of Oldenbrook becomes a place of quiet tension. The people, once free from the curse, now face the weight of the land's demands. Sarah has shared the burden with them, but the hunger of the land is not easily satisfied. The people of Oldenbrook must learn how to live with the land, how to appease its hunger without losing themselves in the process. But the land's appetite is growing stronger. The earth trembles, the wind howls with a strange intensity, and the sky grows dark at times as though the land is shifting beneath their feet. The villagers work together, planting crops, rebuilding homes, and caring for the land. But the demands never cease. The whispers continue, urging them to give more, to do more, to feed the land with their energy, their lives. As the hunger grows, so does the fear. Some villagers begin to grow restless, questioning whether the land's demands will ever stop. They are afraid of being consumed, of losing themselves in the process. They question Sarah's ability to keep the balance, to maintain the peace. Sarah, too, feels the toll of the land's hunger. She is its guardian, and she cannot ignore its needs. Every day, the land pulls at her, drawing her energy, her spirit, into its depths. The whispers are constant, never ceasing, and the land's demands are unyielding. Sarah knows that the land is not just asking for her, it is asking for all of them. One night, as Sarah stands at the well, her hand resting on the stone, she feels the land's hunger surge through her. It is more intense than ever before, the pull of its power threatening to overwhelm her. She knows that the villagers cannot give more. They are already sacrificing so much, but it is not enough. In that moment, Sarah understands what must be done. The land will never be satisfied with simple offerings. It demands everything. And in order to protect the village, in order to ensure their survival, Sarah must make the ultimate sacrifice. She must give herself fully to the land, to feed it with her soul, to appease its hunger once and for all. As the sun sets over Oldenbrook, casting long shadows over the village, Sarah makes her way to the center of the village, where the villagers have gathered. She knows what she must do. She must become one with the land, give herself fully to it, and ensure that Aldenbrook survives. The land's hunger will never truly cease, but with this final act, she can bring peace to the village. The villagers, too, must accept their role in the cycle of the land. Together, they will learn to live with it, to respect its power, and to give as much as they take. "I will do what must be done," Sarah says, her voice filled with quiet determination. "But we must all share this burden. The land will always need us, but we will always need each other." Aldenbrook, once a cursed village, now stands as a living testament to both suffering and resilience. The land has been freed from the darkness that once held it captive, but that freedom has come at a great cost. As the sun rises over the village, its golden rays cast long shadows across the land, the quiet hum of the earth filling the air, a hum that is both peaceful and foreboding. Sarah, standing at the center of the village, feels the pulse of the land beneath her feet. She is no longer just Sarah, the woman who had once been full of hopes and dreams for a life beyond Aldenbrook. She is now the guardian of the land itself, the one who holds its power, its hunger, its essence within her. Every breath she takes, every movement she makes is in tune with the land's will, but the weight of that connection has become unbearable. The whispers of the land, the call of the spirits, the pull of the earth are constant, never-ending. They have grown louder, more demanding, and Sarah knows that the time has come. She cannot keep this balance forever. She has given everything to the land, and it has given her peace. But the price has been steep. The land is hungry, and it will not be satisfied until it has consumed everything she is. Her soul, her spirit, her essence. She has already sacrificed so much, and now it is time to make the ultimate decision. Sarah stands before the well, the place where it all began, where Daniel had given his life, where the curse had been broken, and where the final act of peace must now unfold. The land calls to her, its whispers reaching into her soul, urging her to give one last offering, one final sacrifice to ensure the survival of Aldenbrook. The villagers gather in the square, a quiet tension hanging in the air. The weight of what is to come has settled over them like a heavy blanket. They know the land is alive, that Sarah has carried its burdens for so long, but none of them truly understand the cost of the land's hunger. They have worked together, rebuilding their homes, planting their crops, and living in relative peace. But they are now at the mercy of the land's power. Sarah had tried to share the burden, to teach them how to live in balance with the land. But the hunger of Aldenbrook was too great to be tamed by mere mortals. Now, the villagers must make a choice. They must decide whether to accept the land's power, to coexist with it, or to fight against it, risking everything they have worked for. Sarah knows the decision is hers alone to make. She is the one who must decide what price will be paid for the peace they now enjoy. She has already given herself to the land, but now she must decide if that sacrifice is enough, or if more is required. As the villagers watch her, they see the weight of the decision in her eyes, the deep sorrow that has taken root within her. "I've carried this burden for so long," Sarah says, her voice steady but filled with a quiet desperation. "The land has fed on my energy, my spirit, and it has given us peace. But it is not enough. The land demands more, and if we do not give it, it will consume us all." Her words hang in the air, and the villagers stand in stunned silence, unsure of what to say. Emma, who has watched Sarah's transformation from the very beginning, steps forward. She can see the toll the land has taken on her friend, and she knows that Sarah cannot carry this burden alone any longer. "We can't let you do this alone, Sarah," Emma says, her voice filled with quiet determination. "We're all in this, together. If the land demands a sacrifice, then we'll make it together." We'll share the burden. Jacob, who has been silently watching, steps forward as well. We all owe it to the land. It has given us life, and now it's time for us to give back. Sarah turns to them, her eyes filled with gratitude, but also with sorrow. She knows what they are offering, everything they are, everything they have. And though she wants to say yes to accept their help, she knows that the land's demands are too great to be shared by all. She must make the ultimate sacrifice. I've already given everything, Sarah says softly, her voice breaking. The land's hunger will never stop, and I cannot keep feeding it. I cannot keep giving my soul, my energy, my life. I've become part of it, and it has consumed me. Emma steps forward, her heart breaking at the sight of her friend, the woman she once knew, slowly being consumed by the land's hunger. "We can't lose you, Sarah," she says, her voice trembling. "We're with you. We'll help you. Together we can find a way to stop this." But Sarah shakes her head, her expression filled with both love and resignation. "The only way to end this is for me to give everything, to become one with the land, to become its heartbeat, its soul. That's the price of peace." Jacob steps forward, his face filled with anguish. "There has to be another way. We can't let you do this alone. We can't lose you." "I'm sorry," Sarah whispers, her voice barely audible. "I've already lost myself. But if I don't do this, Aldenbrook will fall. The land will consume everything, everything we've worked for." The villagers stand in silence, the weight of Sarah's words sinking in. The land has already claimed her, and now it demands the final sacrifice. Sarah has given everything, her spirit, her life, and her soul. But it is not enough. The land's hunger is too great. And now, in this final moment, Sarah must decide if she is willing to give everything to ensure the survival of Aldenbrook. As the sun sets behind her, casting long shadows over the village, Sarah feels the land's pulse in her chest, its heartbeat echoing through her veins. She knows what must be done. The price of peace, the price of salvation, is her life. She will become one with the land, and in doing so, she will give Aldenbrook the peace it has longed for. The land calls to her, its whispers growing louder, more insistent. The voices of the spirits, the very essence of Aldenbrook, are all bound to her now. They will never leave, never fade. But she is ready. She is ready to sacrifice herself to end the hunger. "I give myself to the land," Sarah says, her voice steady and calm. "I am Aldenbrook, and Aldenbrook is me." With those words, Sarah steps forward, placing her hands on the earth. The land responds, its power surging through her, filling her with an energy so vast, so overwhelming, that it threatens to consume her. The land's hunger is insatiable, but in this final act, Sarah becomes the land's heartbeat, its soul, and with that, she brings peace to Aldenbrook forever. As Sarah's form disappears into the earth, the land grows still. The air becomes calm, the wind ceases to howl, and the whispers fade into silence. The village, once teeming with restless energy, now feels peaceful. The land's hunger is no more, and Aldenbrook is finally free. The villagers stand in awe, watching as the land settles into its new harmony. They know that the sacrifice Sarah made was the ultimate one, the only way to bring balance to the land. And though they mourn her loss, they also understand that she has given them the greatest gift of all, peace. Emma and Jacob stand together, their hands clasped tightly. They know that Sarah's sacrifice has saved them all, but they also know that they cannot forget her. She's now part of Aldenbrook, her soul forever intertwined with the land. And as they look around them, they see the village in a new light, a village reborn, a village free. The days following Sarah's sacrifice are filled with a quiet reverence. The villagers go about their lives, rebuilding and restoring. But there is a new sense of harmony in the air. The land no longer demands, no longer hungers. It simply exists, a part of the world, a part of them. As Emma and Jacob walk through the village hand in hand, they feel Sarah's presence in everything. The trees, the earth, the very air they breathe. She is not gone. She lives in the land, in the very soil that sustains them. And with that knowledge, they find peace. The village of Oldenbrook, once cursed and haunted, is now a place of life, of balance. And as the sun rises over the village, casting its golden light over the land, the people of Oldenbrook know that they are free, thanks to the ultimate sacrifice of the one who gave everything to protect them.